Freedom, man. That's what it's all about. You've got to groove on freedom, like the good book says.
Welcome. You are listening to What on Earth is Happening. This show will discuss the topics of human consciousness, mind control, natural law, the occult, and all issues that affect the freedom of the people of Earth. What on Earth is Happening will endeavor to shine light upon the darkness of our world and to offer empowering solutions to the problems we face as humanity approaches its critical moment of choice. And now, here is your host, Mark Passio.
Welcome one and all. You're watching What on Earth is Happening. I'm your host, Mark Passio. My website, whatonearthishappening.com. Ladies and gentlemen, government is slavery. And right here on What on Earth is Happening, we are ending slavery one mind at a time. We got a great show lined up for you here today. Today is Sunday, February 24th, 2019. And today is the 200th episode of What on Earth is Happening. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, 200 episodes into this endeavor. It's been quite a journey, and what we have planned for the show today is I'm fresh back in Philadelphia from Acapulco, Mexico. I was at the Anarchapulco 2019 conference. It went very successfully for me. I'm going to recap the events of the conference, talk about what I experienced on the way there and back and while I was there, and some of the great speakers that I got a chance to see and people that I got a chance to meet with while I was out there, and give people a little bit of a finger on the pulse of the anarchist community and how the entire movement seems to be progressing. So that's going to be the first hour of the show, and then we're going to do 2 hours of your calls starting at 4 p.m. Eastern time on Discord. You can go to whatonearthishappening.com/show in order to get the Discord call-in room link. We take calls through Discord. It's an app similar to Skype with a lot more features, and that's how you can call into the show live. So starting at 4 p.m. Eastern time, we are going to go to your calls for 2 hours, and you will make the content of the show from that point forward. So let's jump into the topic for today, which is Anarchapulco 2019 and my experience at this great event. So if we switch over to my computer, I will show people the title card of my presentation at this event. This was my main talk on the main stage, Anarchy and the Occult Part 2, Religion versus Initiation. I'm going to summarize what I got into in that presentation in a few moments. But to start, I want to just say thanks to the organizers of the event. Thank you to Jeff Berwick. He did a great job in the organization. Jessica Kill, who was one of the main event organizers, also did a great job in being responsive to my needs and was very professional, helped set up all the travel arrangements for me. So I want to say thank you to her as well. Everybody had different experiences at this event. Mine went pretty smoothly this year, I'm happy to say. For others that may or may not have been the case. But in any event, I know what a difficult job conference organization is and can be. I was involved in it for several years, and it's a lot more difficult than people make it out to be. So have a a lot of respect for the people that undertake such an endeavor. And I want to say thank you to all of the organizational staff. The people on the stage particularly did a very good event on the main stage. At least that's where I spoke. And, the tech staff was very good and responsive as well. So I want to thank them as well. It's a big job to keep a lot of people happy at an event this big, because there's so many different needs and requirements for different people. So just want to say that people seem to have really attempted to go out of their way to, meet my requirements for this event, and were very attentive in their job at doing that. So I want to give a shout out to some of the other speakers that I felt really brought a lot of value to this event. I'm going to talk a little bit about my presentation and workshop in a few moments. But speakers that I got a chance to actually catch at the event while I was there, first of all, I traveled for I was away for 16 days, and half of that was travel. I traveled for 8 days, to and from this conference. 4 days to get there, and 4 days to get home, because I traveled by ground because I don't fly. And I want to talk a little bit later about the experiences in traveling, because it really makes it such that I don't want to travel anymore at all. And I want to talk a little bit about that. And I want to talk about how far down into a police state we really are, and how that has to be stopped. I mean actively stopped by whatever means necessary, because it is getting worse and worse and worse. Okay. So, that's coming up as part of my experience, which was, partly good because I enjoyed traveling by ground, but partly bad because of the, scumbag order followers and the experiences that they put people through, while they're just trying to travel from one place to another. So, I want to say that I think the people that really brought what I consider to be the most value to the event, to Anarchapulco, were the people who really incorporated fundamental philosophical ideas and fundamental spiritual ideas to this conference, and really talked about the holistic picture, because there were many people, and I'm not outright complaining about this, I'm just saying this is the fact of the matter, who do not have the holistic picture when it comes to anarchy. They have a very limited scope, and this is what I was talking about, before I left when I did the show on the Arc Drive. A lot of people have incomplete, partial pictures of the entire situation regarding human freedom, and we need to close that gap. We need to narrow that chasm, that divide in knowledge, by helping people to get the bigger picture information, because it's still not out there in a big enough way, folks, by any stretch of the human imagination. Okay. And there's many people who think they have the total picture and think that they have all that they need, and they're sorely mistaken. And they'll revel in their ignorance. They will revel in thinking that they have it all figured out, when in fact they're missing huge pieces of the puzzle in order to be able to see the big picture and grasp what's really going on. So I think the people that did an excellent job in bridging that divide and helping some of the quote unquote, the double quotes anarchists that were in the community there, to start to develop a wider worldview about the scenarios and the data that they really need to take into their mind and their worldview to really develop a deeper understanding of what's taking place. And those were the people I went there to hear. And those are the people who I feel we did shared work together at this event in bringing people further along in their understanding. And that was, of course, David Icke, who has been, who I consider a personal mentor in many ways. And he gave a phenomenal presentation, very long format, in which he really went into detail about the entire big picture and talked about that dynamic that many people only see the pieces, but they don't see the big picture. They don't take a step back. They can't see the forest for the trees. And I think he did a very good job in explaining the wider picture to many people. And I think a lot of people responded well to that. And I want to thank him for being a part of the event. Max Egan is always a pleasure to be around as a man, and he is just a phenomenal speaker. He gave a speech with It was, an on the fly, right out of his mind, very little in the way of pre-preparation, which I have so much respect for his ability to do, to speak like that, just direct from the heart, without any actual prepared statements or prepared presentation. And his speech was absolutely phenomenal at this event. Max is a guy whose presence you just have to be around and feel, because he's an inspiration as far as I'm concerned. And he was one of my favorites at the entire event. Derek Brose did a fantastic job. He gave his talk about all of the points of what holistic anarchy is all about, compared this to the spiritual system of, the understanding of the chakras from the Vedic tradition. And his speech, he just knocked it out of the park. I think that this is what we need more of. We need more people bringing the holistic picture to the anarchist community and incorporating true spirituality into the understanding of what real anarchy is all about. So thank you to Derek Brose. Larkin Rose always does a fantastic job. This was no exception. He gave several talks. I was able to catch his main stage presentation, which was great. He did a little skit at the event where he kind of dressed, it was pretty cool. He dressed like in an outfit that he had everything split right down the middle. Like he had a shirt that had two different patterns on it, and a hat that had two different patterns on it. And then he was turning around from one side to the other to pretend to be two different people making arguments. One, of course, advocating for the nonsense and slavery of statism. And then one person who was able to, think logically and clearly and understood government to be nothing more than violence and coercion, and he was advocating, of course, the anarchist position. And it was very well done. I got a chance to see his talk that someone recorded in the room on guilt-free freedom, which was also very good in one of the breakout rooms where a lot of the workshops took place. And Larkin is just absolutely brilliant in his ability to break things down in easy to digest ways and put it in very simple terms for people to understand. He always does a great job with that, and he did a great job at this conference as well. Benny Wills, what more can I say? Just absolutely gigantic heart on this guy. Incredible creative skills and ability to put into words and infuse comedy into a situation that is extremely profoundly serious. Yet Benny has such a way with words in his poetry, and he did conscious poetry at the event, laden with comedic elements as well. And it was just so creative and so well put together that you just have to check the guy out, Benny Wills, from Joy Camp. If people aren't familiar with Joy Camp in this community, you need to become familiar with them, because it's an absolutely brilliant comic element in the anarchist community. And I think people who are familiar with my work would love it. So Benny Wills and Sonia, absolutely a pleasure being around them at the event, and the job that they did was just outstanding. A person who I was not familiar with until attending this year, who really made a profound impact on me, was Gina Carr. I was not familiar with her work on veganism and on animal rights and reducing the suffering that human beings do to animals. And I just have to say, the people at the event did not treat Gina well. Okay, I just want to say that. Okay, the room cleared out for her presentation on veganism, and it was absolutely unacceptable as far as I'm concerned, borderline disgraceful. I have to say that was one thing that I felt was just not acceptable that I saw took place. Literally from almost 1,000 people in the room down to like less than 50 people while she was speaking, and that was not cool at all. Okay, first of all, she is an absolutely eloquent speaker. She is an impassioned speaker. Her information was so profound that it left me in tears, literally, okay, while I was sitting there watching it. If people aren't familiar with her, you should be familiar with her information. It just like it hit me so deep, emotionally, that I can't even say enough. That's all I'll say, okay? So Gina Carr, Brilliant. Was not familiar with her. Became familiar with her when I sat through her main stage presentation, and she did a fantastic job. The videos that she used were perfect. The images, the imagery, all of it. Can't say enough about it. G. Edward Griffin, who I did get a chance to speak with this year as well. I talked with him at more length last year. He is just a spectacular person. He gave a great presentation as well. Sort of advocated a little bit more from the minarchist position regarding government. And, I'm okay with that because he's helping move people along toward a deeper understanding of what's really taking place in the world, especially regarding the monetary system, which is what his focal work is all about. So G. Edward Griffin has been a cornerstone in the freedom community, and he continues to be. And just a tremendous amount of respect for that individual. And just when you hang out with him and talk with him, you can see he's a tremendous human being and just, really has a way with people. So I want to thank G. Edward Griffin for being part of it. Mark Devlin, all of his work with music and the dark occult. If you're not familiar with Musical Truth, his books, I believe he has 2 volumes of his books now on Musical Truth. You should be. I actually gave a little blurb on volume 1 that's, I believe, on the back cover of the book. His work is fantastic. And his music, his DJ skills, finally got a chance to hear that. He showcased that at a pool party that I attended while I was out there. And Mark Devlin's just an amazing DJ as well, in addition to being a great freedom activist and author. So we did also get a chance to hang out a little bit and talk. And Mark is just a fantastic human being. And his DJing skills are just top notch. He played some conscious hip hop and rap that was off the scale, that I had never heard some of these artists and their incredible mastery of language and bringing it all together and saying so much in so few words, and yet doing it in a creative way and in a way that was, just such musical craftsmanship and genius. And Mark really helped expose me to some new conscious rap and hip hop. So I thank him for that as well. And then, Chuck Williams, he interviewed me there. He has worked with Dash in the past. He's big into the crypto community. He interviewed me as part of the crypto show. They had a bus out there that they were doing live interviews the whole time. So he brought me onto the show. We also hung out, him and his wife Melina. We hung out on the beach at Anarchapulco, did some body surfing, and got in the ocean, got some sun. I don't know if you could tell, I'm a little bit sunburnt. It was a lot worse while I was there. It's kind of moved into a light tan and is not as bad as it was. But I could still tell and feel it. The sun in Acapulco is not like it is up here in Philadelphia. It is hot, and I mean, it is penetrating. And part of that is, the geographic location on the earth, but part of it is what we're doing to the atmosphere, ladies and gentlemen, because we're killing the atmosphere. Order followers are killing it, what they're spraying into it. And, the sun is just, it can take its toll on you if you're not careful. I don't use chemical sunscreens or anything like that. I stay away from all that stuff, putting any of that on my skin. I just try to take the sun in directly. And just being outside, with little shade, I did overdo it a bit. But, part of it, all the travel, all the work, delivering the presentation workshop, which I'm going to talk about momentarily, it takes its toll on you. And, you have to... Part of what I was trying to master and juggle there is, rejuvenating and getting a little bit of personal time to be in nature, because it's like we forget that is all part of taking care of the physical body and activating the physical body. So I not only got exercise, I got, a little bit of, relaxation time while I was there as well. And I have to remind myself a lot about how important that is, because I don't do a lot of that. So I did have a good time in the ocean and swimming in the pools at the Princess Hotel Resort there. I love the water. I joke around that, I'm a cat because I'm born under the sign Leo, but I'm also a fish, because I love the water. I love to swim. And it was always one of my favorite things to do growing up. And I still am a huge fan of the water. So I did get a chance to rejuvenate and hit both pools and and the ocean while I was there, which was a great thing. So I want to say thanks to also Carmen and Pat from the State of Anarchy. They also interviewed me out there. Did an interview after I came off from my main stage presentation, and that went really well. We kind of had a little bit of a gathering outside their setup area, out of the main speaker area, the main stage, and they interviewed me for a little over half an hour, I guess. And they're also putting together an event called Anarchadelphia, which is going to be happening here in Philadelphia this fall. I don't have the exact dates, but if you look up Anarchadelphia, I'm sure that you'll find the event. They actually formally invited me to participate at Anarchadelphia, and I accepted. So I will be part of that event. I will be giving a presentation at Anarchadelphia. Again, that details on that will be forthcoming, but I want to thank them for the work that they're doing. All the other people that I hung out with, Greg, Mike, Jason, Rachel, so many others, too many to name, just made the experience so wonderful. And I want to thank everybody, for who was a part of it, who attended, and who contributed to it, because they all made it worthwhile. So the actual event, I can't say that I had any bad experiences. I will say one thing did happen. It's just a personal thing. I feel like it was not a lost item, but I do feel like personal item was stolen. I'm not going to really get into all the details of it. It kind of bummed me out for a little bit, because I feel like if you can't trust your stuff at an anarchist community, that is supposed to know about the spiritual principle of not to steal, then, where can people be really trusted? And that kind of put a little bit of a small bum out aspect on it. And I'm going to have to basically go through some things to, replace the item that was taken. Nothing extraordinarily important that cannot be replaced, but that's all I'll say regarding that. I did have a small piece of personal property, what I feel was stolen, not lost. Due to the circumstances, I know exactly where it was placed, and then it was gone upon me turning my back for a little while, which, you really shouldn't do at all. But I figure, if you're not going to trust somebody at an anarchist conference, where can you trust anyone? So a little bit of a disappointment there. I didn't let it ruin my time. I tried to let it just, go and, continue to enjoy myself and do my work while I was there. So, that's all I'll say about that. The travel, okay? It was laborious. It was long, okay? I enjoy traveling by train especially. I hate airplanes. People know that. I get nauseous on airplanes. I don't like the TSA. So the traveling by train wasn't so bad. It's just, long. So, I was traveling 2 days by train to get there, and then made transfers to buses after that. So I traveled from Philadelphia to Longview, Texas by train on Amtrak, and then transferred over to buses from that point to get to the Houston area, and then down into Mexico, down to Acapulco, all on buses from there. So going was 2 days of train travel plus an additional 2 days of bus travel. The bus was much harder than the train, obviously not as comfortable, but generally went pretty smoothly. Funny story, I did miss a bus connection, which could have delayed my arrival by 12 hours or more, maybe the better part of a day, and I didn't want that to happen. I was actually still putting some finishing touches on both my presentation and my workshop. So I really didn't want any more delays. I wanted to get there on time. So when I missed the one bus transfer that I had near the border at Laredo, the people at the bus station said, there's a border bridge that you can cross by foot. And it's easy to cross. It's only like 3 or 4 blocks from here. Just walk in this direction. They pointed me to it. They said, you can go over to Nuevo Laredo and just get your next bus connection from there. So that's basically what I did. And I walked across the U.S.-Mexico border. It's something that probably not many people have ever done who are from here in the United States. So I figured it's an interesting story to tell. There's like a border bridge. Cars are allowed to cross it. It's a smaller one at Laredo. There's 2. There's a huge one where most of the traffic goes through, and then there's a smaller one that is a little bit west of the position of the main bridge. It's on a street called Convent Street. and I crossed that one on foot. And when I went across and got to the Mexican side, the border security agents really hardly did anything. They made you put your luggage through a scanner to just make sure there was no weaponry being carried across the border. And after that, they didn't even want to see my passport. They didn't even take it, didn't stamp it, didn't ask me why I was in the country. None of those traditional customs questions that you get harassed with, okay? They just waved me right through. I was like, do you even want to see this? And showed them the passport. They're like, no, just go right through, you know? So there's like totally hardly any, harassment or tightening of border security going into Mexico at all. It was painless. Went to Nuevo Laredo, got my next bus connections, and was on my way. I was fine. Coming back was an utter disgrace. And this is what one of the topics I want to get into before I go into some of the things that I presented. But folks, this country is getting worse and worse and worse and worse when it comes to police state measures. The people here who do a job that think that they're involved in some kind of security are utter fucking garbage. You are utter fucking immoral garbage. I don't know how else it could be said. You should be so embarrassed and ashamed for yourself. Your parents should be so fucking embarrassed that they are the kind of trash that they are and that they raise the kind of fucking immoral trash that you are. That's all I have to say. That's all I have to say to the people that think that they're protecting or providing any security for people here. You are immoral fucking garbage. Okay? You are dirty Nazis and you are dirty fucking communists. It doesn't matter what side of the left or right paradigm you think you're on. You are totalitarian fucking scumbags. Okay? And I would say it right to your face, but strip away your nonsense of being part of some gang, and then I'll say it right to your face, man to man, little boy. Sorry, there would only be one man in that equation, and that would be me. You're a little fucking piece of trash boy whose mommy and daddy didn't pay enough attention to them when you were a little boy. Okay? So, coming back into this country was like worse than Nazi Germany. I guarantee you the German citizens of the Third Reich did not go through anything like this. The actual German citizenry. Okay? Because they treated people worse than cattle. Barking orders. Now, at the border, it wasn't as bad. It wasn't that bad. I should say that. The actual customs agents at the border, not that bad. Similar to the Mexico situation where they scanned your bags, they did stamp the passport. They didn't even ask any questions coming back in. But then after that, there are security checkpoints that are set up by U.S. Border Patrol, and these are the trash that I'm talking about. This is the total fucking trash I'm talking about. Okay? And I'm just going to use plain street language to describe these pieces of shit scum. Okay? Because that's what they are. And you are destroying America. You're destroying America. You're destroying America. And you're selling your children into slavery, you pieces of trash. That's what you're doing. You're selling your children into fucking slavery, you pieces of scum. All right? And anybody that thinks that you're doing anything worthwhile, that thinks you're doing anything so-called moral or to protect people or to provide security, they're dumb pieces of dirt just like you. All right? I'm not going to mince words. I don't give a shit who agrees with me or disagrees with me. It's because most people sit sheltered at home, watching their imbecile TV, don't pay attention to anything that's going on in this damn world, and think they have some informed opinion when they have a brain full of liquid diarrhea. Okay? That's really what they have, you know? And they deserve a smack in the face, but unfortunately, shit splatters. You know what I'm talking about, people? You know what I'm saying? Okay? That's what it really is. That's how dumb people in this country are, and how ill-informed and uneducated they are. And they're a disgrace to what it means to actually, supposed to mean to actually be American. You're un-American pieces of fucking sewage. All right? So, treating people like cattle, making them literally get off the bus, line up, separate from your luggage, taking your luggage off the bus, line up, put your luggage all in a line, stand behind it. Have dogs sniffing all through everything. You know, going into the bus where people were sitting, sniffing through all the seats and where all the luggage compartments were. You know, under gunpoint. When they already, big men, you're such big, courageous men, aren't you? You little filthy pieces of trash. Boy, little baby boys is what you are. All tough because everybody else is already disarmed. You're so tough. Such tough guys. You're low-life little wusses is what you are. Low-life little wusses. That you'd get cleaned up, you'd get your ass handed to you in any confrontation with any real man in 2 seconds, boy. That's what would happen to you, son. Okay? You know, take off your cult outfit that other jerk-offs believe in, and then face any real man. And you'll get put down and put in the ground, son. That's what would happen to you. All right? You're trash and your parents are fucking trash. That's what you are. That's all you are. That's all people who believe in your bullshit are. Okay? So, people didn't think it was going to go like this on this show, did they? Because I'm fired up from that. All right? I'm back. I'm glad to be back in this country. Because I don't really want to travel anymore, folks. The experience that I went through on the way back into this country, not leaving it, coming back into this country, makes me so embarrassed to have to say I'm even a citizen of this area of the world, that I'm a citizen of this country. Whether you want to talk about what that means to be, quote, a citizen. I'm not talking about the legal definition. I'm talking about that I live here, and this is the kind of trash that the people of this country breed. That's what I'm talking about. That I'm embarrassed to say that I'm from here. And I'm embarrassed that other people think this is what's necessary and required to be in place in this area, of this geographic region of the world. You are utter garbage. Garbage. Okay? Get as offended about that as you want. I couldn't give a shit. All right? So, that's what the U.S. Border Patrol does. They're just as big of pieces of trash as the U.S. Park Service is, as all the police of this country are, because you're authoritarian garbage. You're authoritarian garbage. You're authoritarian garbage. And the people who think what you're doing is in any way moral is just as much garbage, and you're complicit with totalitarian, you pieces of trash. And the problem is, not enough people are teaching actual morality to people. Not enough people are even bringing up the philosophical issue of morality and what it really is to do wrong to somebody else. You have no right to do any of the things that you're doing. None. You just believe that you do because you're a little crap boy. You're a little piece of crap boy who was raised by a little piece of crap mother and a little garbage piece of crap father that think you have these rights when you have no such rights, boy. Okay? That's what you are. And it's bad parenting. It all comes down to bad parenting, folks. It all comes down to that every time. Trash, immoral trash will beget immoral trash. And that's what we have in this country. We have a bunch of little children who are immoral trash, then becoming parents and breeding more immoral trash. That's what we have in the United States of America and throughout the world. You know, folks, it really doesn't matter where you go. You know, one thing in all my travels and all the travels that I've ever done, wherever I've gone in the world, it's the same consciousness. There is no difference no matter where you go. And as a matter of fact, believe it or not, the heart of America, the actual people who live here, are probably the most conscious people on earth. As sad as that is to say, with the dumb bags of shit walking around here. Okay? But I'll tell you what, it's probably even more conscious than any other country on the face of the earth. And that kills my heart to even have to say that. But I'll tell you what, it doesn't matter where you go. It does not matter where you go. It is the same immoral garbage, the same worship of the cult of the state, no matter where you go. Doesn't matter. They have almost everybody's souls. They not only have their minds, they have their souls. Okay? It's bad. It's really bad. And that's what this show is about. I'm trying to tell my listening audience, you're not getting the word out well enough, because this is still how it is. And there's millions and millions of people waiting in line to do these fucking jobs. Okay? So let's gauge that as our effectiveness. How effective have we been? We're a piss in a pot. That's what we are. Okay? That's how effective getting the message of real morality out to the world has been. I have to just say it like that, because if I didn't, I'd be lying to myself and you. And I'm telling you, that's where we're at. So I traveled a total 8 out of the 16 days that I was gone from Philadelphia. That was brutal. Okay, so it's good to be back and not on a moving platform anymore. Okay, however, I do prefer the moving land tubes to the moving sky tubes, I have to say. Okay, so at least, I actually love the travel by train. Okay, I have to say that. The train travel was actually somewhat enjoyable. Cool experience. If you've never gotten on a nice train and, traveled somewhere across, even partially across this country, do it. It's worth it. It's a good experience to get under your belt, in your lifetime. I would highly recommend taking the sleeper cars as well. It's not really that crazy expensive to do. Meals are included when you do it that way. You get a nice little sleeper car. It's nice, cozy. There's 2 bunks. If you're traveling with someone, they have their own bunk too. But, a little bit more roomy if you're only traveling alone. And, the Amtrak people try to do their best to accommodate people and be attentive to their needs while they're traveling. I have to say they were very hospitable as well. People down in Texas, you hear about that Texas hospitality. It's true. People are pretty polite down there, I have to say. It's not like it is up here on the East Coast where it's like a hostile environment, My experience in Texas was the people were very polite. And I would imagine that is also because there's so many firearms. There's so much firearms ownership and concealed carry that people are just polite because you don't know who's armed. So you don't start garbage with other people, So I have to say that dynamic that you hear about Texas, in my experience at least, is, it's a true stereotype that you hear about that Texas hospitality. And it is true, at least in my experience. So, what I want to talk about briefly before we get to calls, and let me say this about calls. This is the 200th episode of What on Earth is Happening, okay? Been doing this format, first in audio, now in video, since 2010. So almost been doing this 10 years, about 9 years now for the show. I would like to hear, when we go to your calls in the next hour, what has been your overall quality of change of your experience since listening, from whenever you started, okay? So whether you started with the podcast, whether you started watching my videos on YouTube, however you got into it, and you now follow What on Earth is Happening, the show, what has it done in your life? What has been your experience of how you have changed, how your life has changed, how your relationships with other people? I'd really like to hear about that. I want to hear about your personal experience of change in your life regarding having taken in the material from What on Earth is Happening and what it has done transformatively for you, if anything. That's personally what I would like to hear. You can bring up whatever you want, ask whatever questions you want. If you have any questions that you want me to clarify, anything I've talked about from day one, that you're free to do that as well. So, but what I'm saying that I would like to hear about is, How has this material helped you in any way? And how has it just changed the quality of your life in any way that you would like to share with the listening and watching audience? So one of the things I do want to say is, let's go back to the slides real quick. I just want to show people a little bit about the ARC drive. I'll go back to the other slides regarding the presentation because I do still want to talk about that and talk about the response for it. But, I talked about the ARC before I left, and I put this ad up on the show of how to receive the ARC. I went through the whole process, showed people how to box it up. And I just want to say to everybody who took me up on this offer in the last couple of weeks, you guys did a fantastic job, number one. Very, very, very respectful in your taking me up on this offer, and I thank you for that. That's number one. Number two is the response was overwhelming. I mean, when I mean overwhelming, I mean I'm going to ask live on the air for your patience in me fulfilling these requests for the ARC information. It's going to take me a little while. I'm telling you, the response was overwhelming, and they're still coming in. Okay, so let me just show you a quick picture. If we switch back to the presentation, okay, this is just some of the ARC drives that I got. Okay, this is what my desk looked like when I got back home. Okay, please be patient, folks. I'm one person. I do have a few computers here, only a few. Okay, so it is going to take a bit to fulfill all of these requests and get them back out to you, a little bit longer than I usually take. Usually I'm very on the ball quick with this, okay? You have to realize while I was away, this is what occurred. So just be patient with me. I'm really the only one who does this, okay? I will have a small amount of help in getting these to the office in the neighborhood to ship them back out. So I'm just saying, just publicly, please just be patient with me, okay? And I will get them fulfilled and out to you, okay? So I want to also, let's see. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all I wanted to cover. I'm just looking at my notes here. I want to talk about the presentations that I gave, okay? The main stage presentation, I was trying to fit so much data into such a relatively small period of time that I had to talk very quickly. I had to move through my slides very quickly to get it all in. So maybe at some future point when maybe this is out publicly, I will give the whole presentation in an extended format. Maybe here's what I'll do. I'll make this deal with everyone, if you want to call it a deal. I will, after this presentation becomes public in a future What on Earth is Happening show, I'm going to do a full extended version right here on the show of Anarchy and the Occult Part 1 and 2. So the whole series of Anarchy and the Occult delivered at Anarchapulco 2018 and 2019. I will do a full extended presentation series on right here on What on Earth is Happening. That will be a couple of future shows, okay? Maybe in 2 or 3 shows it'll take to do that. All right, so that's some future material for What on Earth is Happening. But delivering this live on stage was a great experience, okay? As rushed as it was, I really needed really about an hour and a half to properly unpack this. I had half of that time. I had 45 minutes. I went over by maybe 2 minutes, okay? The next speaker who followed me was a lovely individual who was had no issue with me going over by the couple of minutes that I did. I apologize for doing that, and there was no problem. But I usually try to be really respectful and keep it right on time if there's someone following me. So I did go over by a little tiny bit. But as I said, I would really required a minimum of an hour and a half even to do this in a way that wasn't rushed. But had to speak very quickly. And when you see the video, when it comes out, you will notice I'm moving very fast. So that's number one. Number two is this was heavy esoteric information for a lot of people there. And I want to say, by estimating, I calculated how many actual chairs were in the main hall. You had about 2,000 chairs set up in that main hall, in the main speaker hall at Anarchapulco 2019. they did a fantastic job with the setup and the stage. I felt the stage maybe could have been a little bit brighter color-wise. It was a little on the darker, stark side. I don't have a problem with that. I'm just saying, like, maybe just for pictures and things like that, maybe they could just enhance the brightness and color aspect of the stage a little bit. But it was very professionally done. And again, the audio and video people, bang up job. I mean, just great job. I can't say enough about their professionalism. That's one thing that I do have to say that I saw personally. Again, I'm not speaking for everyone. Everyone's experience will be different as a speaker or an attendee. I experienced a lot of high-level professionalism while I was there, and I want to say thank you again for treating me like that and having the professionalism that was displayed. So that part of the presentation was really on point of the event, I should say. So I counted approximately how many people were in attendance during my talk. If I had to give a rough figure estimate, I would say that the vast majority of those seats were filled, with the exception of some toward the back. I would say maybe 3/4 of the seats. I'd estimate like 1,500 people were in that room watching my presentation. Maybe a little bit less, but I'm going to say right around the number of 1,500 people, which is it's awesome, to attend an event where there's that many people and they're very attentive in their paying attention and being respectful while you're delivering everything. So I want to say thank you to the viewing audience that was in attendance for their respect. I think that my presentation covered some areas that many people did not think it was going to go into. I think it was, as was last year's presentation, almost not shocking, but it was a little bit of a much different experience than what many people expected it to be. Okay, I'll say that. And I think it's because the type of information I bring to the table when I attend events like this and speak at them is so different from the general information that is presented by other speakers. Where many people are talking about the political and financial aspects, I got into the spiritual aspects, the aspects of consciousness, and most of all, and most importantly, the aspects of morality. And so few people, too few people, have put together the moral issues as being the underlying causal factors of the human condition of slavery, which we are currently in and experiencing as a species. There still is not enough in the way of a direct understanding of the causal relationships between morality and freedom. And that's one thing that I find very sad and lacking in this community of people. They're pretty much willing to have an open mind and seek the truth, however. So I have to say that I think there were much more in the way of open-minded individuals there than closed-minded individuals who just don't want to hear it. That dynamic is also present, though, the closed-minded dynamic. It is there, okay? The good news regarding at least this community is that the closed-minded dynamic was far outweighed by the open-minded dynamic, and that's good. That's heartening, okay? That is actually good to see. So many people came up to me, as they did last year, and told me, your information blew my mind. I'm going to be looking into your work. Thank you for being here. Thank you for doing what you're doing and presenting this, especially to this type of a community. That was told to me repeatedly after my main stage presentation. So thank you for the people who expressed that kind of a sentiment to me personally. And the people who weren't receptive to it obviously did not even say anything, didn't come up to me. There were no people who were, like brutally critical, criticizing what I got into and talked about. I think just if it didn't resonate with them, they just ignored it or just, did not engage me. And that's fine, okay? Not everybody's going to be ready to hear what I have to say the way I say it either, okay? And there was a dynamic of, I do want to say, a few individuals who still don't understand me or my style and don't understand the righteous indignation as many people will hear the first part of this broadcast and not get why I'm angry about this. So one individual, I don't recall his name, don't know whether he wants his name out there. And I'm not, hammering on this person because of this. I just want to bring it out as a dynamic that was called to my attention. An individual stopped me while I was walking on one of the pathways there at the hotel and said, "Mark, why were you seemingly so angry during your presentation?" First of all, I didn't think I really was. I thought I gave my presentation in a pretty tempered way, personally. I raised my voice a couple of times, and it was given in a pretty straightforward, stark way. Made a couple of little jokes, but it wasn't like in any stretch of the imagination my most, angrily delivered work. Certainly said nothing like I did on this broadcast. Okay. So I didn't think it was really that angrily delivered, if you will. But this one individual did think it was. So I said, well, let me ask you this. And I did this very politely, and it's not, again, I'm not angry at the person for saying that. I just said, what dynamic, if not the dynamic of the enslavement of our fellow brothers and sisters of human beings, if that dynamic of enslavement of our very species would not create the emotion of anger within you, what dynamic would ever make you angry? I can't remember who said it right now off the top of my head, but someone once said, you can tell a lot about a human being by what makes them angry. You can tell a lot about their character, about why they get angry. Do they get angry over absolutely frivolous, inane nonsense that shouldn't make anybody angry? Do they get angry over what the mainstream media tells them you should be outraged about this next 48-hour period that we're going to be hammering it, and then we're going to switch to the next thing we think you should be angry about? Okay, no. I'm angry about my rights and the rights of my fellow human beings being taken away from them without the right to do so. And if that isn't what you want to gauge yourself as an individual based upon, if that dynamic of slavery will make you angry, I think there's something profoundly broken in your constitution as a human being. I think there's something profoundly missing in your psychological and emotional makeup as a human. And I think that has been taken from you without your really understanding that it has been taken from you. Okay? And as such, I have agreed by being asked by who's going to be the promoter and organizer of the event, Carmen from State of Anarchy, to deliver the presentation that he knows, because I speak to him personally, that I have had in the works for several months. Haven't really fully, worked out all the details of what the presentation is going to contain. But he has asked me at Anarchadelphia in the fall to present the presentation that I have had on the back burner, kind of, waiting in line to deliver, which is going to be called The Sacred Gift of Anger. I will be delivering at Anarchadelphia in late 2019 a presentation entitled, I agreed to do this, called The Sacred Gift of Anger. Okay? And let me tell you something, folks. That is exactly what righteous anger is. It exists for a reason. There is a very valid reason for the existence of this emotion. It is not there to be shunned. It is not there to be pushed all the way deep down and ignored, so it later explodes in hideous ways like a bomb. Okay? It is there to be felt, and it is there for valid reasons. And I would suggest that if those out there are incapable of feeling anger, then your own masters have done a more profoundly spectacular job at the total annihilation of your personal psychological and emotional makeup than you can possibly ever imagine. You are broken at a level that may not be fixable. That is how much of a head fuck they have done upon you. That's the only way that I could I can't really say it any other way to people, okay? Because if you don't know definitively in your heart, mind, and soul that there is a role for righteous anger in the world, and that this is it, this is the reason for it. When people without absolutely any right whatsoever in nature, in the universe, come forward and attempt to make other people their slaves and put them under their duress, coercion, and violence, if that's not the time to display the emotion of anger, then what the goddamn hell is the time to display it, ladies and gentlemen? Because if you can't understand that simple fact, there is something profoundly broken at the soul level inside of you. Inside of you. I don't really trust people that never display the emotion of anger. I don't trust them. I don't want to be friends with them. Okay? I don't hang around with people who never get angry. I don't do it. Okay? I will ostracize you. If I see that you never display that emotion and you're incapable of displaying it, I know that you're really deeply psychologically fucked up. It's not the other way around. It's not that if you do display it for the right reasons. Now, don't get me wrong, folks. I don't want to hang around totally toxic people that get angry about everything and stuff that they shouldn't be angry about. But if you're not angry about the things that a human being absolutely should be angry about, okay? Let's emphasize that word greatly. There is a time and a place that you should be angry about certain things. Okay? If you cannot feel that emotion and then channel it and do something with it, there is something profoundly broken inside of you at a psychological, a mental, an emotional, and mostly at a spiritual and soul level. And these are the dynamics that I'll explore more in depth when I deliver the presentation called The Sacred Gift of Anger at Anarchadelphia later this year. So, back to the main presentation. You could hear like a pin drop while I was delivering this. People were, I felt, so attentive and practically on the edge of their seat. They were like hungry for this knowledge, which was a very, very good thing to see. Okay, so I have to say that I feel it was more well received than I would have anticipated. And I went into some harder material for people this year than even the first year. Okay, so I talked about how religion is the whole one and only problem. Erroneous belief systems that people put through their mind with very little psychological processing. And then they accept the belief, which becomes what's known as an axiom. An axiom is a core, widely accepted belief in society. Okay? And then they act upon it. And because the belief was incorrect, and they took it in without enough proper filtration of the belief, of the axiom, the underlying information, then they're acting wrongly in the world as a result. And then they get a chaotic result, or a result that is not what they want in life. This is what my main presentation was, and it was talking about not just religion as cultural religion, but there is government is a religion, money is a religion, okay? Moral relativism is a religion, which was one of the big religions I was talking about, that we have to erase this virus. This is a mind control virus, okay? It not only constitutes a false belief, a false axiomatic belief, it is a false religious belief. So people have to understand, first of all, I'm talking about religion from a much wider worldview than cultural religion of Christianity, Judaism, Islam, etc. It's not what I'm talking about as religion. You could put those in the grouping of religions, but religion is a much wider field of endeavor to study because it's about false axiomatic beliefs. And then what I got into a little bit later in the presentation was, in order to purge this virus from the human psychological, mental, emotional, and spiritual makeup, we have to go through the process that was taught to the ancient mystery school tradition initiates through the process of occult initiation. And then I described what is the initiatory process. This is why it was called religion versus initiation. Most anarchists are still in religious thought process. They're not really in truth-seeking methodological process. They still have a lot of fundamental religious axioms in their mind that they haven't exercised the initiatic traditions of using a virus removal program to scrub away and remove those false axiomatic thought processes. Okay, so the initiatory system helped to guide the initiate in the proper way of removing those mind viruses from one's psychological makeup. And then I went into what that process is, which was a 5-fold process. I added a 6th step, actually. I did that kind of with the 7 Hermetic principles and then the principle of care, which surrounds and binds them all together in my natural law seminar. In this presentation, I talked about the process was stop lying to yourself and to others, stop dreaming or engaging in cognitive dissonance or magical thinking, learn how to think through the Trivium and Quadrivium truth discovery processes, okay? Live in the present moment and stop infighting amongst ourselves because we understand what our actual situation is in the here and now and how we're at war. And then activate the physical body because most anarchists aren't really eating and exercising right and engaging in the self-defense principle. This is another big thing I want to talk about before we go to your calls. The lack of understanding of the self-defense principle. I'm going to do that when I get to my workshop segment, okay? And then I added to activate true care or true heart-based intelligence in the understanding we have to activate within ourselves that we understand that as even one individual is suffering, all are suffering. And let me just temper what I said earlier about the pieces of immoral garbage that are totalitarian scum working in the whole system of government here in the United States. They do need healing, okay? These are brain sick individuals that have totally imbalanced brains because of the garbage food that they eat, because of the garbage religious thought processes they were taught by their garbage parents and garbage school teachers, garbage media people, clergy, etc. Okay? They have total garbage for the mind so that their output and behavior is total garbage. Garbage goes in, garbage comes out through behavior. Garbage goes into the mind and becomes a mind virus, and then it goes out in the form of garbage behavior. And then we get a garbage world, which is what we have, okay? A world based in coercion, violence, and chaos. That's what government is. That's what slavery is. They need healing, okay? Part of my work is to help other people to see what the needs and requirements are for the change that we want to see expressed in our actual living experience. No one person is going to be able to do all of that work. Impossible. It is impossible for me to do all that for all the individuals. I cannot do that for anyone, actually. Only they can do it. All I can be is a way shower. The other thing is, you hear this dynamic by total fucking imbeciles all the time. And I'm going to say this directly to all the people who say this. You are a total fucking imbecile. Because I directly make a point of directly engaging this dynamic in 90% of my presentations that I deliver. There is no new information in any of the presentations that I deliver, folks. It's always been here in humanity among us since we have existed as a species. Okay? The truth is eternal. It has always been. It will always be. There is nothing new in the work of Mark Passio. If you believe you are going to discover any new colossal data or information or invention or system or some kind of a solution that is brand spanking new that no one has ever heard of, just turn the fucking show off right now and never listen again. You're never getting that. That's not what I'm here to do, imbecile. How directly do I have to say this? Do I need to go out with a megaphone and shout it in the fucking streets? Okay? There is no new information here. I talk about eternal truth that will always be present because it is part of the dynamics of nature. How thick and fucking boneheaded does someone have to be not to understand that when I've said it a billion fucking times? I'm tired of repeating myself about this dynamic. And this is all an imbecile who has obviously hasn't taken the four fucking seconds to listen to anything I've ever said. We'll spout with verbal fucking diarrhea. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it because I've said it a billion times and you're too dense to listen. Okay? There's nothing new under the sun. You're never going to get anything new. These are eternal principles of truth that can never be destroyed, that will always be present. All I could do is help to describe them to people, help people to understand them, because they have mind viruses in the way of understanding them. And so I do that in my way because this is how I want to do it. I'm not interested in how you want me to do it or how you would do it. That's the whole point. You get out there and do it. If you don't like how I do it, who gives a shit? Certainly not me. I could care less. I've been doing this for too long to care about what anybody thinks of me or my work or how I do it. I'm only interested that you develop an understanding in whatever way you're going to. It doesn't have to be from me. You don't like the way I do it? Turn the show the fuck off. Who cares? Okay? Go listen to somebody else who has the truth and learn from them. I don't care where you get it. But people have to become adults and understand, you got to understand this because it's about your freedom and mine and everybody else's for that matter. So I put it out there in the way I want to put it out there. You want to do the work? Don't complain about how I do it. I'm not interested in your complaints. Okay? I couldn't give a shit. Get out there and put it out there in the way you would if you're so smart and you're so great and you could do it so much better. Go and prove me wrong. Prove that it can be done 1,000 times better than I can. That's what I want, honestly. That's what I want out there, folks. I want it to be done 1,000 times better than I could possibly ever dream of doing it. So give me about 1 million teachers doing it that way, and we've been making a little bit of headway. We've been making a little bit of progress out of human slavery. Okay? So that's the dynamic that I want to talk about. Not everybody is ready to hear the information that I delivered at Anarchapulco. There are still some people who are very resistant to it. And you really see that when you look at anarchists, social media that have all these retarded, left-brained, religious worshipers of scientism, of outdated, completely erroneous and outdated Newtonian worldview of what science actually is and contains and how the scientific methodology actually works, that has been disproven for about 150 years. And this is how far from the actual catch-up that when real discoveries are made in new scientific forms, and new scientific discoveries are brought forward in the scientific community, this is how wide the gap is before the public actually gets it. We stay like clinging on to a dead corpse, okay? The vast majority of human beings. When scientific discoveries have been former scientific discoveries have been completely disproven as false, and a new emerging worldview comes forward in science, it literally takes over 100 years, over a century, for the public to even begin learning that what was printed in old textbooks is wrong. And that's what you have in the so-called anarchist community. You have so-called scientific Darwinian materialists that are scientism worshipers. They're not people who really want to go through a scientific process of truth discovery. They are just worshipers at the altar of what is called science, which I call scientism because it's a religion. And that's what these left-brain imbalanced, smacked asshats are, because that's what they are. Call it an ad hominem attack all you want. It's still true. Okay? So those are the people who won't get this because I'm actually talking about them in the presentation. They're the left-brain imbalanced people who are stuck in a completely imbalanced worldview that is there to mind control them into continuing to wear their chains. They'll never get out of their chains in that imbalanced mindset and that imbalanced worldview. They're in the worldview schism. They're in the psychological schism. They're broken at a brain level and at a soul level because they dismiss consciousness and spirituality. They don't even understand that's the only solution. The only solution is changing consciousness. The only solution is coming into the knowledge of true spirituality. That's it. If you're not working toward that great work, you're not making any progress in creating a world that is based in anarchy or true freedom. Get over it. Okay? So that is what I want to say for my presentation. Next, if we want to switch over to the computer view briefly, to show people this was the poster for my workshop, Demystifying the Occult Revisited, Initiation into the Mysteries. This went on for 9 hours. I went over by about an hour. Okay, I planned on an 8-hour workshop. It went into a 9th hour. Folks, this is probably, I'm very proud of how this workshop turned out. Okay, and I mean, I worked hard on this to put this together in this way. Okay, the people who attended were top notch. All right, I want to thank everyone who attended the workshop. You guys were so respectful. Your questions were incredible too in the question and answer session, and it just went perfectly from beginning to end. The room setup was done very well. The projector that I had was great, and the screen. There was a little bit of a tech snag at the beginning. I want to thank the tech staff for helping me work that out during the setup in the workshop room. The people who attended gave me a lot of good feedback, both at the workshop and after, and said that this workshop helped them to understand such a wider picture of what is going on, that they just had nothing but really great, very nice, respectful things to say to me after they came out of it. And I've gotten a lot of email. One of the things I want to do on a future show, folks, is I want to read some of the correspondence that I get from people to show you how powerful and profound it is to hear from people whose life this work has changed. And that's what I want to do in your calls as well, which we're going to get to in like a couple minutes. So I want to thank everybody for sending feedback on both my presentation and my workshop at Anarchapulco, because it is really heartfelt. It means a lot to me personally to hear what you have to say regarding that. I try to go through my emails as best as I can. You got to understand, folks, I get so many emails. It's crazy. Okay. So many were piled up when I got back. I'm trying to take my time and go through them a little bit. I have a lot of people I want to write to and thank. I want to respond to some of the email feedback that I got regarding my presentation and workshop. So I want to thank everybody for sending that feedback. This presentation, this workshop, I feel was one of the more powerful pieces of knowledge that I put out in a one-day session to people. And it was a conglomeration of other material that I put together, no hugely new material, but it was the way that it was put together and the order and the different elements of many different presentations that I actually totally incorporated into this, that I think made it special and unique. And that was harder to do than I thought it was going to be. I was working on this really right up to the point where I had to go and deliver it, believe it or not. That preparation in putting a 9-hour workshop together, it was like the preparation I had to do for the natural law seminar. A whole lot of work that can be stressful because you have a deadline, doing while traveling and while away. But I have to say it came together in a way that I was so very happy with. And I just want to say a very special thanks to the people who contributed of their personal resources to attend this workshop, because it was an extra ticket, separate from the main ticket from the main event. And the people who attended helped to make the event financially worthwhile for me to travel and attend another country for all of those days. And without you, the event would not have been, without you in contributing those resources and attending my workshop, the event might not have been in any way financially viable for me to even do or participate in. So I want to thank you guys from the bottom of my heart for being willing to contribute of your time, attention, and resources to attend the workshop. That was, for me, the biggest highlight of the entire time that I was down in Mexico, was delivering this workshop. I really, really, really feel that way. So thank you again. That being said, and again, the people that I want to say gave certain types of feedback, in no way am I angry at anybody. It's you're very welcome to give, even negative feedback and not agree. We don't have to agree on everything. I want to just say where I feel like some of the anarchist community goes, whereas the majority, if I had to pinpoint what is an imbalance within the community, it would certainly be that left brain scientismic thought process, which I consider a religion. But there is also the opposite, where you have people who are too on the spiritual new agey side, a little bit too much toward the new agey, that do not understand yet deeply, very definitively deeply, the self-defense principle. Now, thankfully, I think most people do. But there are some who still, well, I would say, I would have to, unfortunately, label them to be pacifists who would not engage in the self-defense principle for any reason. I also feel that that's a extreme psychological and spiritual imbalance. I have to say that, to be honest with you and to be honest with myself. So, I said some pretty extreme things at this workshop, regarding what we have the right to do under duress, like I did out in Phoenix when I spoke and delivered Duress, Dissidence, and Deadly Force at Ivan's conference in Phoenix, Truth, Mind, Reality. The reality of our rights are very extreme things. We have the right to perform deadly force upon those who are taking our rights away. I'm not telling anybody that it would necessarily work out well to do that now, but I'm not saying it's not a right. It is a right. When someone is kept under duress and prevented from exercising their rights, they have a right to use self-defensive force up to and including deadly force. That's the truth. That's our natural right. And people have to understand that. They have to understand it. It doesn't matter whether you don't like it. That's either true or it's not true. And I'm trying to explain to you, it's true and it's a right. And so, you have people at even an event like this, which is considered an anarchist event, who still don't understand that aspect, that there is a time when we have the right to take lives because of what those people are doing to take lives and rights away from people that they have no right because they initiated the harm. See, I have to refine the definition of a right. It's not just who causes it, it's who initiates harm. It matters who starts it, because one can do harm to someone who has initiated harm without right. That's called self-defensive harm that you can conduct upon someone else. If someone accosts you on the street and pulls a weapon and says, give me all of your possessions, if you shoot them or if you beat them to a point where they're immobile, you performed a right. You didn't do anything wrong in that situation. There's only one wrong, and that was the initiation of the harm or duress or coercion. And this is what people still have to psychologically understand. They haven't gone all the way in their understanding of the self-defense principle. And if you don't combine and marry together in sacred union the self-defense principle with the sacred feminine principle of non-aggression, okay? That's what this hat that I'm wearing today is all about. It says NAPSD, non-aggression principle of self-defense. The principle is right in the middle, the P. Okay? So it's about combining these two forces together, these two pillars of enlightenment or principles of enlightenment, however way you want to consider it or look at it. If you only have half, you only have half the equation, and that's not going to get it done. Okay? So that's one dynamic I wanted to discuss a little regarding some of the people present at Anarchapulco, certainly not the majority. But maybe they'll get there, It's like they have to hear this right out in the open. That's why I feel like the mincing words and trying to take people there super tiny little piecemeal while worrying about all of their emotional considerations. Look, there's no more time for that. I don't have time for that. Maybe you want to do that in your personal life. I'm not telling you not to. Okay? You do it. You do the great work in whatever way you want to. I'm just saying that's not my shtick, folks. Okay? That's not how I do things. So if you want to complain, go do it somewhere else. Don't complain about how I do it. Just get involved, then do it how you would want to do it. And show me how great that works out. Okay? And then when you're converting hundreds of thousands or millions of people, I will shake your hand. I will pat you on the back. And I would be like, you did something I don't even have the patience to do. Maybe it should be done that way. That's not my personality. I don't feel like I have to do it any particular way. Okay? As long as I'm speaking truth. Truth remains truth no matter how it's communicated. See, this is part of taking people out of the mind control. The mind control is truth is only truth if it's communicated a certain way. Wrong, ass. Wrong, ass. Wrong, ass. Okay? No, it is not. Truth is the truth whether it is screamed in somebody's face. Okay? Or it is given in the most gentle, peaceful terms imaginable because someone is so frail they can't handle being spoken at like an adult. Okay? I'm not interested in that dynamic. I want to confront the dynamic of why are you in the mode of saying just because you don't like the emotional delivery that you can't accept whether it's true or not. All that matters is whether it's true. Nothing else matters except whether it's true. This is piercing the mind control. Confronting it head on direct. You're under mind control if you can only hear things from an emotional point of view. And you want to gauge the truthfulness of it based on how it makes you feel. That's mind control. Let's look at it head on directly. Okay? That's what I try to do with my work, is make people aware of that dynamic. Because most of them aren't aware of that dynamic of mind control and how it works. So the goal here is get out there and do the work. Don't complain about how other people are doing it, because we're in a situation where we are way deeper into a police state than we've ever been before. And these jackasses in government want to make border security harder, tighter for even American citizens coming back into this country. They're a disgrace. A disgrace. Your freedom is being affected by it. Everyone's is. And I'm telling you, we have to turn it around, folks. We have to turn it around. Okay. So I'm going to exit out of the I want to leave the last slide on the main presentation by just showing the donate link, okay? If people have found value in what I've presented here during the years doing What on Earth is Happening, please visit whatonearthishappening.com. Donate. There are many ways to donate to help this show continue going and to help me in just being able to continue doing this work. So now I just want to send a couple more thanks out to everybody who has helped before we go to the calls. I personally want to thank everybody who accepted the ARC offer and donated as part of sending their drive. So appreciated. You guys you're the best. You're so generous. You're hungry for the knowledge. I'm going to do my best in not messing around and getting all of these drives back out to everyone. Hopefully by the end of this week or maybe into next week a little bit, but I'm going to do my best in doing it as quickly as possible and as safe a way to get your property back to you safely as possible. So thank you for all the people that donated as part of their taking me up on the ARC offer. And also, tremendous thanks to all the people who donated technology, not only just donated monetarily through the links that are on the donate page, but who donated technology. This takes a lot of pressure off. Now, there's nothing on the wish list. People actually purchased all those items for me. I mean, that's profound from my heart. Really, it really is. Because you know why? That really helps take the pressure off of me and keep some things in the pipeline too. You know, when I need extra toner or paper or discs or anything like that, and it's there, and I don't have to wait for it. And you know, it helps make the process of making inventory and getting things out there to people smooth. And that's what this is all about, is getting this information out there. And because of the gifts area of the site and the donations page, you guys are helping me get this information out to a much wider audience. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for helping with that task. So I think that's all that I have in the way of any slides for today. So let's jump in with your calls, and the rest of the show will be you will make the content. Anything is fair game, and I personally want to hear about what your experience in taking in the information of what on earth is happening, how that has gone, how it has been for you, how it has changed the quality of your life and the quality of your relationships, if you'd like to talk about that. So let me get geared up here with my headset. Okay. And I'm going to unmute myself and jump into the call room. I think everybody in the waiting area in the call room on Discord will be able to hear me. And let's jump in. So, here we go. Let's hear from Unabashed Anarchist. You're live on What on Earth is Happening, episode number 200. Are you able to hear me? Check. Looks like we're having a technical issue. My mic is unmuted. His mic is unmuted. Uncheck the main mic. Okay. All right.
Mark, can you hear me?
There you are. We have you. It looks like we solved that issue.
Sorry, I had push to talk turned on, and I
No
forgot
worries. I apologize, folks. It was a little bit. We had a couple of technical snags setting up today. I apologize for the little bit of tech issues that are going on. This is going to happen. We'll work through them. So thanks for your patience. So yeah, thanks for being the first caller on the 200th episode. And anything is fair game. What do you have for us today?
Well, thanks for having me, Mark. I've been following you for a long time. I actually discovered your work first when you did an interview with Red Ice Radio, Henrik Palmgren.
Oh, yeah, a long time ago. I remember
2012, 2013, something like that.
Yes.
And I'm an individual who, when I was a child, I actually independently derived the idea of political anarchy and philosophical anarchy without having any input from outside. And I was, shot down and told by so many people, no, this isn't the way it is. That would never work, and yada, yada, yada. And so I just went off onto the internet and, from spiritual and political and all kinds of different explorations. And, when I heard your article, and I believe, you're talking about how, well, here's why democracy is actually like a million times worse than monarchy, because, when there's a monarch, it's like that's the person to blame for everything that the government's doing. When there's a democracy, it's the whole psyop of, well, we are the government. This is what we're doing. And, that how insidious that actually is.
And the idea incorporated into democracy that the majority will rule, the mob will rule, and that means if there's an immoral population that believes that they could just make up whatever immoral things that they want to make up, that's perfectly fine and acceptable under that form of, quote, man's law.
Oh, I see one of the folks in chat has the name Immortal Technique, and that's a rapper I'm very familiar with, and he's one of his quotes that I took most to heart is universal truth is not stipulated by mass opinion.
That's awesome. Yeah, Immortal Technique actually played at Anarchapulco. I did not get a chance to attend, but friends of mine attended and said it was fantastic.
He's an amazingly
I
talented
was
artist.
working on finishing touches on my work and was unable to actually attend at that point. So, but I heard it was very, very well done.
Awesome. So Mark, there are a couple things that I had written, just jotted down, trying to get on the calls for the past couple weeks. One of them is, and I'm big into debate and argumentation, not from a hateful standpoint, but just from I've always looked through your work to see is there something that, I could improve upon, or that I don't necessarily agree with 100%. It's very hard because you're on point about a lot of stuff, Mark, but I
appreciate that.
I feel like the way that, you've communicated the idea of good and bad, while it is, it's mostly very, very on the up and up. I think the one factor that you haven't really touched on to, satisfy me is the idea of intent as being a part of the karmic formula, the part of the morality. Well, an action that causes harm is a wrong, and an action that doesn't cause harm is a right. True, but true in the sense that, the sun rises in the west. It's yes, okay, sure. Well, that's true from a certain perspective. But from another perspective, you have a man who has a random number generator that if it hits on a certain number, it's going to explode a nuclear bomb. And it never hits that number, and the bomb never explodes. And so, we can still see that he's done a moral wrong. And then we have a man who's, stone cold sober, car in perfect repair, tooling down the road, and hits on a nail or something he doesn't see and swerves and kills a bunch of people. And we can see that he's, morally not as culpable for that act as the first individual would be for his act, even though his action has harmed people.
I would agree with that. I don't really think that I have, misrepresented that in any way in my work.
Oh, no, sir.
Yeah. But I think that, I take the approach that intent isn't as meaningful because too many people, I believe, use that as an excuse and or justification for behavior which initiates harm to other people. Because they'll say, well, they just didn't know, right? So the idea is that ignorance of natural law would be some sort of an excuse. Now, you hear this all the time in man's law. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. Well, that's a bogus argument. Nobody could actually possibly know all of the statutes and all of the laws that are made up by man on a daily basis. It would not even be a practical thing. Okay, no one could take all that information in and know it at any given time, especially when it's in a constant state of flux and changing all the time because of the moral relativism that it is based upon. But to say that there's no excuse for natural law, for not knowing natural law, I think does hold weight, because you can have the intention of wanting to do good, okay, but in exercising something that is based upon coercion to perform so-called security and or trying to keep people safe, which is always what all of the rights, the limitations and taking of rights is always based upon. We're going to keep you safe, because they're playing upon people's innate sense of morality by trying to say, well, what would you advocate be done if this isn't done, and all this harm would come to people. No one can keep us safe. That's number one. See, part of what more people have to get into is there's a few things that can never be done. Okay, it is an impossibility for anyone else to actually really take care of all the aspects of your life that you need to have functioning and working to be a healthy adult human being. Only you can really do that. You have to take the responsibility to do those things. That's not to say we can't cooperate and work together. Okay, but it is ultimately to say you cannot make someone else responsible for what is going on in your life. Okay, you can't make someone else responsible for your health. You can't make someone else responsible for your education. You can't make someone else responsible for your relationships. You can't make someone else responsible for the progress of your spiritual understanding, learning, and growth. You must be responsible for all those things. So this nullifies the nanny state, or the left aspect of the political spectrum, who they want government to be mommy, nanny, and take care of all those things. No one can take care of all those things. Only you can be responsible to take care of those things for yourself. The second part that nullifies all need of man's law and this intent of trying to do the right thing, this is why they always have to portray government as being the good guy who's trying to do one of these two things or the other, either provide and care for everybody, or what's the other thing? To protect and make everybody safe. This is the daddy aspect of the whole, aspect of government. And this is the part that is all about coercion of other people, okay? And then we're going to take your rights to make you more safe and keep you protected. Well, here's the big axiomatic flaw in that thinking. That's religious thinking. Because just like no one can ever care for all of your needs and what you need to develop in your life, no one can ever protect you or keep you safe. It is an impossibility for another to protect you or keep you safe. Now, look, in a situation where, like, an attacker is trying to attack someone's wife or girlfriend, obviously a man can help thwart off that kind of an attack, individual or even a group of people. It is possible to help contribute to helping to protect or keep an individual safe.
But there are no guarantees.
And they're not going to be there. Who's going to be closer to the actual nature of a situation that could potentially harm you than you? This is why self-defense and martial arts have to be part of our self-care program. Right. Okay? You can't leave that to anyone else. That's why you can't say, I'm going to let the government protect me. You have to learn martial arts, self-defense, and firearms responsibly, so that you can do this when the situation arises. Everyone, from Mark, the time they're a child, should be practicing those things.
And Mark, I do have two children. I've got a 5 and a 7-year-old, and I've raised them both, and I'm continuing to raise them both homeschooled, teaching them, I've studied Aikido, Taekwondo, Shotokan, Kung Fu, teaching them all that. When it comes time, We'll teach them firearms as well. But
that's fantastic.
And this is something that I was on the fence about.
That's conscious parenting right there. That's one of the things that I think should be emphasized more and more.
The idea of teaching them about anarchy kind of openly, and how to some people that was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're telling your kids this. Let them grow up and make their own minds up. But it's like, no. There are people out there teaching their children about the legitimacy of the state, or about, if they don't follow all the church's rules, they're going to burn in hell. And another really cool thing
what you are doing there is you are properly morally educating your children, which is what your charge as a parent is to do. So you're doing it the right way by morally bringing them up from a young age. That's what we are supposed to do as parents. They are your wards, you are their steward, and you are doing right by them and teaching them those true moral principles. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Mark. And the last thing I really wanted to get across to you, I know we use in the truth community the idea of chess as a concept of the light against dark. There's a game that I'm not certain that you're aware of. It's older than chess, and it's called Go or Baduk or Wei Chi, depending on what country you're in.
I have heard of it, but I do not know how to play it.
Mark, I know you're a busy guy, but if you have a moment to learn that game, I promise you that the philosophical and spiritual truths that you will take away from learning that game will absolutely impact your view on how to argue, how to debate, how the truth movement should go about a lot of things, because it is very much a game where
that's awesome.
It's absolutely worth the play, and anyone who's part of the truth community should check it out.
Yes, you are not the first person to tell me this. My producer is actually smiling because he brought it up to me not too long ago, and it's something that I am going to take the time to familiarize myself with in the very near future. So thank you. Great points. See, look, folks, these are the kind of calls that we get here. Okay, I mean, I've said it many times before. I want to reemphasize it again. The callers to this show are like the best in the entire talk, radio, TV world. It's truly inspiring. It's like that. This is something that does make me feel good that we get these types of calls. So let's go to Brandon Bonanza. Brandon, you are live on What on Earth is Happening, episode number 200. Welcome. You are unmuted from my end. If you can make sure that your own microphone is unmuted on your end. Brandon, are you there? All right. I'll give you another second or two. The unmute is down in the lower left-hand corner of the Discord interface. You should unmute yourself when you come in because you will be server muted from the actual server end until I unmute you. So,
Mark?
There he goes. All right. Worked it out.
Hey, I was using my other laptop, which I didn't have it unmuted. Okay.
No worries. What do you have for us here today, Brandon?
So that coming through on my computer?
Yeah, you want to use headphones and silence any other audio in the room from any device. So if you don't have headphones, you're going to hear an echo. That's going to create an issue. So try it again. I can hear you fine. So just go ahead and ask your question or make your comment.
Okay, so what I wanted to talk about was you wanted to know who was affected from you, and I've came across you probably about mid-December 2018, so it hasn't been that long.
Wow. Very recent. Okay. So what has been your experience or your impression of the information thus far?
Well, I actually talked to you recently on one of your shows, and my experience has been was at a point where I've been meditating for a few years, and I was pretty good with the spiritual aspect, and I've also been super into Ron Paul, into anarchism and anarcho-capitalism, but there was just something there I couldn't there was something that they couldn't get with the spirituality that I was trying to convey to most people. And I understood that. Then I came across you, and it kind of all fell into place.
Oh, that's awesome. Brandon, very quickly, a lot of people tell me, one of the things I hear from many people is that whatever background that they were coming from prior to becoming privy to the information that I put out there for people, is that they feel like they had an incomplete picture or a very disjointed picture of things, where they could not see the relationship between them. And they tell me that this weave that tapestry together and help it all come together and make sense, that all of this was taking place from all of the different former perspectives that seemed very disjointed before. Was that something like your experience? Because that's the thing I hear over and over again from people, is that I helped connect the dots or put it all together for them.
Yeah, that's really true, because I felt that on either side they weren't very accepting of each. You know, if you look at the spiritual community as far as their politics, or you look at the anarchist community as far as their spirituality.
I agree. This is what
really
I talked about in my presentation on the main stage.
Yeah, and can't wait to see that. And then so the way you break down natural law was very inspiring. So
thank you.
I had this domain name that is anarchymeanswithout-rulers.com. I bought it a while ago, and I had been working on it right when I stumbled across all your stuff.
Great name, by the way.
So it's basically just a landing page. So if someone's talking to somebody and because anytime someone hears anarchy, they always think about chaos. Well, not people like us, but the general public. So I figured it'd be a nice place to point people to. And then I came across you. So I actually linked in one of your videos about natural law in there. So I hope you don't mind. Oh,
not at all. I really appreciate when people spread the word like that. And, you know, who knows how many people that might be new to this also, they stumble across that for whatever reason. And, you know, then they hit that and they're off to the races. So I really love it when people share my material like that. I encourage them to do so.
That's exactly how I feel. I kind of feel it's like I can throw rocks into people's shoes, and then when it just becomes an annoyance, and then they kind of look into it, because obviously we all know how hard it is to convey just this pure truth to people. It's just really too strong for them. The cognitive dissonance kicks in.
We're like Transformers. You know, we're able to take that raw electrical energy through this information into ourselves, but then we tend to have to step it down or hand it to other people who can step it down to give to people who aren't really strong enough to take it. It is like really throwing a weight to a person that has never worked out a day in their life, or, you know, has very fragile bone structure and weak strength, and they're not going to just take that, lift it, and run with it. They have to be helped to be built up first. And again, I'm not telling people that's not what needs to be done. That is definitely what needs to be done. You know, it's just I have to try to give this information to the people who are capable, who have the strength, and motivate them to go then and help those other people who have a little bit less strength than we do. So it's important to keep in mind. I'm not saying that work doesn't need to be done. I'm saying I'm the person who's going to hand it to the other strong people first. You know, that we got to build that tight-knit community first. Then we can go and help disseminate it to the people who don't have that strength of character and will. But Brandon, I want to ask you something, if I may.
Sure.
You brought up the dynamic of the divide between the anarchist community and the spiritual community. And this is what was one of the cruxes of my presentation at Anarchapulco. What do you think that we can do to bridge that divide or that gap in understanding and help anarchists to understand deep level spirituality a little bit more, and to help the spiritual people understand anarchy a whole lot more? What do you think might be a method of doing that, or just something that could help to bridge that divide and help that understanding to flourish more?
Well, I'm actually really glad that you asked me that, because I recently wrote a blog post about knowing yourself. That's what I titled it, Know Thyself, because I went and rewatched The Matrix, your video about breaking it down. And it had been a while since I watched it, and a lot of things really clicked for me. So I wrote this easy article kind of breaking it down, talking about like how religion is all basically trying to tell you the same thing, all the religious figures. And so that's at morelawsmoreproblems.com. Quick shout out. So I wrote that, and I tried sharing it around with some of the people. A couple of people were pretty receptive. I've gotten some stuff published on libertarianinstitute.org before, but they weren't really interested in it. And it didn't even, I tried to cut out all the hippy dippy stuff and all the really religious stuff. So that's something I tried. And then another thing that I just been getting into recently is, I don't know about with the libertarians, but I've been getting into tarot cards because of the symbology.
It's it's an absolutely fascinating study. I mean, and it will open up a whole deep understanding of true spirituality and natural law and true freedom if one really deeply penetrates the mysteries of the message of the tarot. It's something that I find profoundly important and have covered a pretty decent amount in my work. So I highly encourage you to look deeper into that tradition. What have you found so far in studying it?
So you're the one I have to credit with turning me on to it, and then I've been looking into Michael Tazarian and his work.
Absolutely.
And I found this book. I'm not sure if it was recommended, but it's called The Ancient Tarot and Its Symbolism by David Lemieux.
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted like $300 on Amazon for it, but I found it.
Some occult books are like that. You'll pay a premium for them depending on how rare or out of print they are. Absolutely.
I mean, it was printed in like '84, but I ended up finding it for $20 on some used book site.
Oh, great!
And it just goes into the link between Hermes Thoth and the Thoth, between the connection with that and the meanings of the cards when it comes to that. So I found that, I think, just with the symbology, because if I could, because I'm a podcaster and I want to start a video series, and I think if I could start to show people the symbology that they see in everyday life and the way it relates to the tarot, maybe this way, because this way it's not really political or religious. It's kind of a fun thing that we're doing, and I'm just dropping in ideas as I do it.
It's helping people to see a system of correspondences that were there to wordlessly teach profound life lessons. That is what the tarot was designed to do. And I think people who aren't religious at all can see that if it's explained properly to them. And I think that it's a pretty good and effective tool set for helping to bridge that divide that we're talking about, because understanding what the tarot cards truly represent in life does not require any religious belief. It is just it's a pictorial fable. It's a collection of pictorial fables and life lessons. It's one of the ways you can see the tarot. So I think that's definitely a good approach and a good introductory thing that maybe some of us can do. And again, we could do it in so many different ways, folks. It is doable from such a different considerable amount of perspectives. The great work is not one thing. It is many, many, many approaches that we should all use simultaneously, from health to true education methodologies, to understanding allegorical systems, to teaching straight, plain philosophical morality to people. It can be done in so many ways. You could do it through art, through music, through pictures, through different occult traditions. And you can choose. You can decide the way that you want to go about doing it in accordance with your strengths. Okay, so that's what I encourage people to go ahead and do. So let's see, who else do we have here? All right, I'm going to go to Ivan from Phoenix. I see that he's in there because I want to give you a little bit more time than last time we spoke. Ivan from Phoenix, my friend, how are you doing?
Hey, Mark, can you hear me today?
Absolutely. Sounding good.
Oh, really? Great. I was kind of worried because the first two times I called you on this show, I was at home. It was a nice, quiet environment, and I forgot all about this being the 200th show. Synchronistically, the first time I called you was from work, noisy background, and today, the 200th show, I'm calling you from work.
Well, I could hear a small bit of background noise, but it's not very distracting. I'm hearing you fine through my headphones. I hope it's coming through okay on
great.
the live stream, so go right ahead.
Yeah, I had to do some gymnastics to get on here. My phone does not accept, for some reason, that Discord app very well. It keeps kicking me out. So I had to use the phone as a hotspot onto my tablet, and the tablet is what I'm attached to now listening to. So
Got you.
some technology works good, and some of it, hey, you got to make some adjustments.
Okay, so yeah, jump in.
All right. So yesterday I attended here in Tempe, nearby Phoenix, an event called Local to Global Justice.
Interesting.
Basically, kind of, yeah, it's I think what we would categorize like social justice kind of vibe, energy. And sure enough, the panels were interesting, and I only spoke twice, asked 2 questions in 2 different workshops.
Mm-hmm.
And both times, obviously, I got that glazed look from everybody.
So you wouldn't
We're-
say they were a highly conscious community by any stretch?
Right. They're as conscious as far as the, I think I've threw this term at you before, conspiracy-tainment. So as far as the universities and whatever the powers that should not be allow people to think they know, that's as far as they're going. It's like guided. It's a box within a box. So they're coming out of one box and falling into another box.
That's the thing. That's how these traps are set up. I call them, cul-de-sacs before the gold mine can be truly developed. They have different nets or snags waiting for people. If they break out of one, they want to snag you in the next one before you can get to the finish line of understanding natural law. So yeah, that is how the system sets up their psychological control nets, without a doubt.
Right. I know you can tell it's well-intentioned speakers, well, hopefully, and attendees. However, they're not ready to go there. And the funny thing is the subtitle for this event was called Radical Imaginations. Okay. So they were talking all these problems with, sex trade and labor and all this stuff. And I stood up and said, okay, I hear what you're talking about. Has anybody considered doing away with money altogether? That is the thing that's keeping everything together because of money, lack of funding, and all this stuff. If you have poverty, you have wealth. So if you get rid of that whole concept and do things that need to be done because they need to be done, that can change things.
You just attacked you just attacked the very God of all creation there, Ivan.
Exactly. Oh yeah. Yep. So that was one thing stood out to me. And then the second,
you just attacked the dynamic that actually created all of the matter and energy and laws of all the universe. Money, right? That's what did it.
I'm an atheist, Mark. I attacked God.
My God. That's deicide, man. That's exactly what that is. You just tried to kill their God.
Hey, man, I'm blaming you, Mark, because you want to know what I learned from you. There you go. The one eye. You told me about the one eye. So thanks, Mark. Now you made life that much more of a struggle for me, because I'm amongst all these people in the matrix and attempting to wake them up to that they're in a matrix, let alone get out of it. Oh man,
I think when we
depression regularly,
when we make headway in destroying the religion of authority, then it will be easier for people to see outside of the box of the religion of money. It's going to be very hard while government is still in place. See, I feel like if we do get out of this very deadly and chaotic situation that we are in with the slavery of government, then we can make some progress and headway toward the end of the monetary system and moving toward a society where we're actually treating each other as a living, dynamic human family of brothers and sisters. That's going to take tremendous work, and I don't think that we're going to be able to do that while we're in slavery. Well, I think we have to end the authoritarian religion first and then move to that higher level of consciousness. That will be the next round of this fight, so to speak. While we're still in this system, obviously people are going to have to acquire what the resources that are used within this system to just be able to live, eat, do what they do with technology, put the word out, create physical items and send them all over the world if they can. It's an unfortunate thing that is quite frankly right now necessary, insofar as because other people still believe in it, we unfortunately must continue to use it and employ it in the best ways. We have to transmute that illusion into truth by using it in the best ways that we can put it to work through us in. So I think that's the best way we can deal with the unnecessary monetary system that is in place right now, until we move to a higher level of consciousness and get out of the slavery of the whole control system as far as government is concerned. I think money will be around longer than government will if humanity moves in the right direction. I think that will be the religion we will conquer after we conquer the religion of government, personally.
Oh, Mark, can we butt heads, Mark? Finally.
Sure.
Well, not necessarily butt heads. I'm just saying they're two heads of the same snake, I would say.
I agree.
Because
Absolutely.
what is this whole order followers and belief in authority? If I'm
Sure.
not going to do what you tell me. Well, here's 100,000. No, well, okay, here's 250,000. Well, okay, shit, what the hell? So they
That's
kind
right.
of go hand in hand, because if the man-made legal order followers won't follow the orders, then the contractors and mercenaries sure as hell will.
Right.
So,
And Ivan, I want to say something
it's all tied together.
in addition to that, as an addendum to that. When we think of the morality and overall consciousness of the people, even the people who are oppressed by the system of control, how many people, percentage-wise, do we think, if offered enough sum of this, illusory construct that we call money, would not cave in and do something immoral if asked to for a certain amount of money? I think the number would be exceedingly small. I think we would be looking at less than 5% of all human beings, to be honest. Again, if I'm being honest with myself and others, which I endeavor always to do, I think we would be looking at about 3 to 4% of human beings would not cave in under the pressure of accepting tremendous amounts of wealth for themselves to do something immoral to another human being. Sadly.
You know what, Mark? Part of what I learned from you then, tying all this in with what you just said now, I would say that percentage that you threw out there may be the other end of the spectrum of the true psychopaths, the true psychopathy.
Yeah.
So everyone else will be secondary, third, fourth, whatever levels psychopaths that will give in, not for 100,000, maybe for 1 million,
Right.
but the ones who won't, that's that small 1% that's the complete opposite of not a trace of psychopathy in their system.
That's right. And it shows you that's how little light there is in the world. That's what a small amount of true spiritual light and enlightenment there is in the world. And it does show us what our great work is to do. We have to communicate these principles of truth and morality to all who will listen at any level, and plant those seeds of understanding in them so that they can, flourish at a later time, possibly. So Ivan, thanks so much, man. Your calls are always fantastic. Do you have anything else?
I'll just throw out a few movies. Oh, and I think Barb had said a little something in my ear about bugging you, maybe doing a little segment sometime or something.
Yeah, we can maybe bring you on the show to talk about some allegories at some point, through movies. Or I'd like to bring you on the One Great Work Network when we get it started, and you have a page on there where you could do allegorical breakdowns through videos or articles. I think it would be great. I want to sit down and talk with you about making that happen at some future point. The network is going to take a little while to get up off the ground. I'm still looking for more technical help. Folks, briefly, let me interrupt you very briefly, Ivan. I'll let you get back to your point that you wanted allegorically about movies, because you always do a great job with that. We did mention last week that I'm still looking for some technical help. I should have covered this before going to the calls. But I want to take just a moment, because I did say to email my assistant if you were in any of those positions to be able to contribute technological help to What on Earth is Happening, but we didn't give her email address. I just want to give her correct email address, because her name isn't spelled like you might think that it is. It's LEIHA at whatonearthishappening.com. Leah at whatonearthishappening.com. If you are in a position to be able to help technologically in the ways that I asked last week, I'm looking for a webmaster with strong PHP skills in MySQL database programming, who can modify some open source software, maybe even make a mobile app. Love to do a mobile app at some point. If you have any of those types of skills, and also we were looking for video editors and Photoshop people, so video and graphics, send email to my assistant Leah at whatonearthishappening.com. She has taken in everybody's request to try to, contribute and help with the team here. And we are going through all of those, and we have, looked at everybody's skill set, and we're going to be getting back to people. So thank you to everyone so far who has responded, and that is the email address there on your screen that you can send your an example of your work and a resume and whatever skill sets that you have over to my assistant, and you'll hear from her. So thank you, Ivan. Sorry for the interruption on that, but it's something that I felt was important that I neglected to mention. So you said you had a few movies that you think people should look at from an allegorical point of view, and I know you're pretty good at having your finger on that pulse and seeing what Hollywood is doing, whether it be for good or ill. You get out there like the messages that are being put out there through movies and popular entertainment. So what do you have for us in that regard?
Okay, yeah, the last time we spoke, I think the last thing I was about to bring up was a movie called Serenity. Did I mention that? Is that right?
I believe so. I have them all written down, so I'm going to start watching the ones that you've recommended to pick out the allegorical content within them.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So this movie, Serenity, it should still be out barely, maybe in a handful of theaters. Matthew McConaughey and Anne Hathaway. The trailer has it. Just a old couple. She's trying to have him get rid of her new millionaire husband, whatever. Yeah, that's a total misdirection from what the movie's about. In essence, it's almost like another Matrix movie. Spoiler alert, because that reality that you're watching in the movie, it's not. It's like in another world. Basically, there's handlers manipulating what's happening there, and it's a total mind game kind of thing watching that movie as it unravels. So, that's one, Serenity. And then this weekend I did this new animated cartoon one called How to Train Your Dragon. It's the third one, The Hidden World. Okay. And right off the bat, what stood out for me with that was that it's almost sorry, I got distracted here. That it has references to America, Trump, and the wall in the conversations. And dragons, overpopulation of dragons, and building something to keep them out. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. But the thing that stood out for me, and I guess someone like Greg Carwood at the Higher Side Chats are really like this, he's all about the hollow earth. And so you got the dragons or reptiles interacting with the humans, and they're trying to find a hidden world. And when they do find it, it's like in the middle of the ocean, this hole in the ocean that goes to the center of the earth. So hollow earth theory, and that's where the dragons end up going and disappearing because they can't exist with humans yet, because humans aren't evolved enough to live with the dragons, with the reptiles. So I was like, very interesting. How much truth was dropped in there, possibly, or that's where the reptilians are at, center of the earth. So, but that's just a cartoon, Mark. We're just conspiracy theorists. Right.
Yeah, they're always dropping little subtle things and hints in there in pop culture for us to consider and to look at if we're conscious of them. So, Ivan, I want to thank you for your call, always bringing up great allegorical things in pop culture, especially movies. Again, I think I'm going to have to do a segment on What on Earth is Happening with you at some point, and or work to get you on one great network and have your own page on that network at some future point. So we'll talk about that. Absolutely. But great call as always. Let's move on to, let's go to Ethan Strawn. Ethan, you're live on What on Earth is Happening. Welcome to the show. Ethan Strawn. You have to unmute your microphone from your end. There you go.
Can you hear me now?
You just unmuted. Thank you. Yes, I can.
Okay, excellent. Forgot about that little feature.
No worries.
So, hey, I'm glad to hear that you got down to that conference well and back safe.
It was a trek.
Glad to hear that things went well with that for you.
The travel was definitely safe. It was definitely a trek. It was a journey. I've never done anything quite that extensive before through ground travel, but it was an experience. Got to see a lot of this country and of Mexico, both beautiful land masses. I'm just, nature is just so profoundly beautiful. So it was good from that respect. The human element, on the travel, not so much. Although, the people just traveling and doing their job to, make the travel comfortable on the voluntary, services were very good in doing their job well. Not so much in the form of the government people who are trying to pretend that they're somehow helping or giving assistance or protecting. That made it practically unbearable. But other than that, not too bad. And, I'm going to have to consider whether I want to do anything like that again. It makes me really not want to travel at all and just stay here until we destroy this system, as it so very much needs to be destroyed. But go right ahead.
Okay, yeah. Can you hear me? I just want to double check and make sure that I'm coming through.
You're coming through loud and clear. You sound pretty good.
Okay, excellent. And just a little note, kind of a tech issue. I'm noticing this happened last time I was on the call with you. There's kind of your transmission is broken a little bit, especially when we're on the line together. I don't know what's causing that, but it's just something I noticed. It happened last time, and it's happening a little bit now too.
Yeah, I think I could try to clear that up by unplugging my headset and plugging it back in, but I think part of it is that Discord's duplexing feature, which means the ability of each person to hear each other while they're simultaneously speaking, is not as advanced as some other chat programs' duplexing functionality technologically. So basically, you kind of really have to have a one-way conversation, and the person has to pause, and then the next person to start to speak, because if you're both speaking at the same time, there can be it's not good to overlap like that. And while I'm talking and you are not, do I sound clear and okay though, or is it garbled?
Yeah, definitely. It seems like what I just noticed there after you mentioned all that is that as soon as I'm done talking and you go into response mode, there's a little bit of broken transmission on your part, but then after maybe 5 seconds passes, you start coming through clear, unbroken.
Yeah, this is normal. This is the way that duplexing works in Discord. I'm sure that their developers, their programmers will add improvement to the voice quality as they continue to refine it. I feel like this program right now met all of the needs that I was looking for in a IP-based voice program to let people call in without having to, rack up fees internationally if they're calling from another country. So this lets us all just communicate over the internet. And it had the features that I was looking for. So some of those things that are just not totally refined, we'll probably get there at some point. We'll just, work around them as we continue to use it. But thanks for bringing that to my attention.
Yeah, no problem, man. I'm really just kind of glad that you're back on the live program. And as I was mentioning last time we spoke, the timing couldn't have been more perfect for me because personally I was just getting through all of your previous podcasts. And as soon as I finished the last one, 196, it was maybe 2 or 3 weeks that passed before you started this new version of the live broadcast. So I'm just stoked that you're back on the stage here.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I have to say that I was down for longer than I wanted to be, and it is good. It does feel good to be back and doing this. It's something that has been an outlet for me. It's almost cathartic for me to do. And, I've said it before, I know people will think this will sound egotistical, but my perspective being absent and lacking in the community, I don't think was a good thing, because I think that void was filled by a lot of noise, let's just say. I'm being nice saying it like that. But I really feel like I should keep my voice on the airwaves and lend the perspectives that I'm bringing forward and bringing to the table to people to consider, because I think it pushes the envelope of consciousness forward. And that's what I'm here to do. That's what my work is. And when I am doing it and on point doing it, I think that really helps my energy and my mental state. So again, it's cathartic for me.
Yeah, well, that's a good segue for me to fulfill your request for call-ins today. I personally, before I stumbled upon you and your work and your podcast and everything, I had been taking in a lot of information and content from different sources eclectically, like you recommend people do.
Right.
And I felt like there was something missing from much of it. And, I was putting together, connecting the dots in my own time and consciousness, over the course of, maybe 8 years or so. And I don't know how it took me so long to come across your work, because I remember I mentioned this in the last show when I talked to you, that I've discovered you through the interview you did with Max Egan, like however many, 2 or 3 years ago, whenever that was.
Right.
And I was just like, wow, stuff that you were saying really resonated with me. And I had already kind of had a lot of those kind of thoughts that you were speaking to on my own. And then, got into your work and realized, wow, this guy is out there speaking about a lot of the stuff that I've kind of concluded on my own, and just felt really grateful to come across your work. And so, for me, I'll just say, I'll leave it at this as far as how your work has impacted me personally. As I said, I've taken in a lot of information and content from other teachers, that put out work along these lines that you do, and I haven't felt more inspired by anybody else as I have through taking in content that you've put out there. So
that really means a lot to me.
That's how it's impacted me. Now,
thank you, Ethan.
Yeah.
That means a lot. I mean, especially when I hear that, you came to the work a little while ago, and you found it, and it helped to connect a lot of former material that you had taken in. I find it interesting that a lot of people come to this to my work very almost late, like that they don't discover it until they have so many of the other elements of the picture. It would seem like this is almost like a final destination for a lot of people, and or the search algorithms of a lot of people's social media and or search engines that they're using are not basically taking people to my content or connecting them to it, which who knows, that could be deliberate, it could be the way the algorithm is set up, but it seems like it takes people a little while to get a lot of other knowledge under their belt. And then when they do find it, that's when they're not resistant to hearing it, because the way has been sort of prepared for them a little bit more. It's like if people weren't familiar with any of this and they just find me cold, just out of the blue, out of nowhere, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be hard for them to really get the truth of what I'm saying. Because they're not going to have been psychologically, mentally prepared and have looked into a lot of other material. So that's what I find has been a pretty similar journey or experience for most people, is that they kind of come to me last after they've really looked into a whole lot of other people's work, and the barriers of psychological resistance have already been somewhat broken down and prepared to hear some of the heavier information that I have to present.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, there's got to be some kind of foundation before sinking teeth into what you've put out there, because it's like an atomic bomb going off otherwise.
It's a great way of putting it descriptively.
Yeah. I don't want to take up too much time, because I know there's a bunch of other people in the call list, but last time you were on air and we spoke prior to you taking calls, you were talking about some stuff, and that brought up a question to mind for me, and I didn't get to ask it last time.
Okay,
so
go right ahead.
I'll put that out there. And prior to that, actually, I want to just let you know, I plan to do my very best to get on these weekly broadcasts live because I have a pretty extensive list of questions I want to ask you.
Sure.
So anyway, so this one came to mind last week. You were talking about the difference between nescience and ignorance, as you've done a number of times. And so I kind of wrote this down, and I'm just going to read it off the way I have it written.
Okay.
So considering the phenomena that I've called divine inspiration or innate conscience, which is the ability for an individual to tap into the infinite field of consciousness or the mind of God, whatever you want to call it, tap into that and receive knowledge, insight, information. Given that ability or this phenomena, how does that phenomena fit into your discourse regarding the difference between nescience and ignorance? Because if this phenomena is real, as many individuals would claim it to be, and I personally, through personal experience, know it to be true and real, is there really such a thing as genuine nescience? Because if all knowledge and information is available to us through this field of consciousness and information, and individuals are not privy to it due to their neglect to exercise their ability to tap into that realm, then can they still be considered truly nescient? That's kind of a lot, but does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the 3D reality that we live in, if you want to consider that, quote, the real, we can still say that information can be sequestered from people, or let's say they can be sequestered from their ability to receive it by being dissuaded, by being having been really physically, psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually suppressed and dumbed down so much. So, I mean, it can be still, I think, a matter of really them never having encountered it. But you are correct also in that even in the 3D world, through books, through podcasts, through movies, through allegories, through, writings, interviews, audio, video, you name it, documentaries, so many different eclectic variety of sources. Right now, there is so much information in the world. We are drowning in a sea of information, and yet we are in an absolute desert of wisdom, because it's the processing, the input and the processing of that data is so profoundly lacking. And that's what ignorance really is. It's not taking in what we should be taking in, so that we are then not coming to an accurate understanding of what it means and then applying it in our lives in the right way. In that sense, I would say I would consider it true that there really is no nescience in our world. We can live in a nescient environment. That is just not the case for humanity right now. Maybe you could say areas of North Korea, China, etc., that are already much further down the totalitarian hole. They really have had this information purged from their communities. And then they have, internet firewalls erected to keep it out. You could say in certain extreme situations like that in humanity that, yes, nescience is present. In all of Western civilization, there's no situation like that. And if we haven't taken it into ourselves at this point, we are actively involved in the completely unspiritual practice and in the freedom murdering practice of actively ignoring truth, or as I call it, engaging in IGNORE-ance. We have to just emphasize that ignorance means to ignore something that actually is present. And that's what I would say is the condition of the wide majority of humanity. Not necessarily for everyone, but for the overwhelming vast majority, we're in a state of ignorance and not nescience. So thank you for bringing that up, Ethan, and thank you so much for the call. Let's move on. We're going to be taking your calls through the end of the show. Frank from Italy. Frank from Italy. You are live on the 200th episode of What on Earth is Happening. Welcome.
Welcome. Hello, Mark. You're listening to me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. First of all, I want to apologize because my English language is not so great. You
It's
can.
no problem at all. We can understand you fine, and I want to thank you from calling from
I'm
Italy.
really grateful that I can speak with you today because it's been a long time that I'm listening to your work.
Great.
You on mid 2015,
Okay.
June to July. So you can even listen to my voice because I'm really grateful so I can speak with you because your work really transformed my life.
Thank you so
I'm
much.
originally from Cameroon
Okay.
and I'm living in Italy 2007. So for me, it's quite a pleasure to speak with you because in your podcast, you really raised me through your material.
Thanks so much. I mean
Emotional.
that is really what this is all about, helping people to just come up in consciousness, see what's going on, and then make informed decisions, and then get involved in helping others to do the same thing. So when I hear that my work has helped you in that process of spiritual discovery and growth, that's what makes doing this worthwhile for me.
So how do I discover you? Because I remember in 2015, I was doing a live seminar
Okay.
about self-help, personal development, because I have studied the work of Anthony Robbins, all those guru of the New Age.
Right.
I don't even remember his name, but I've studied the work of New Age people. So I started to teach people about it. I remember during my presentation that day, I took Nelson Mandela of forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
2 weeks after my presentation, I saw a post on Facebook that Nelson Mandela was part of Illuminati. It was a crucial. So there I say, okay, all these things that I'm doing, because I also learned a little about NLP, where they say you have to model successful people. You don't have to invent the hot water. So just go and take their own strategies and teach it to other people so you can make money. That was my mindset. So I was only there because I wanted to study the work of Anthony Robbins, Brian Tracy, Tia Baker, so I can teach it to other people so I can make money.
Right.
But after my seminar, when I've discovered that Nelson Mandela, who I use as a model of forgiveness, was part of that Illuminati. So I asked myself this question: when I'm doing this type of modeling, for the force of goodness or for the darkness? Let's say, okay, who are those Illuminatis, Freemason? I need to know them because if they are out there doing that dark work, I need to understand how they are working so I
Right.
can prevent myself from them. So I went to my home, in my room, checking on internet, on YouTube, Illuminati, all those type of things. That's where I discovered that all my rock star like Robert Kelly, Rihanna, all the people I used to admire, even basketball player like Kobe Bryant. I also have a jersey of Kobe Bryant at home. So I discovered that all of them were part of Illuminati.
Well, popular culture and especially the music industry is
Yes,
flooded with dark occultism, without a doubt.
I discovered them. So I remained in my room for 2 weeks. I didn't know where to go, what to do anymore because I have a past. It was difficult to me. You, Mark?
Yeah, I can hear you. Continue.
Okay. So when I discovered that all the pop culture, the NBA players, all the people that I were admiring were
You
part
kind
of the
of got
darkness.
you kind of got depressed at that point in discovering that a lot of these people were not really on the
I
side
got
of human freedom.
really depressed. I remained in my room for 2 weeks. I didn't go out because I didn't know what to do anymore.
Right.
And that's how I discovered your work.
Wow. See, some people come to it from the dark side of things, but you were involved in looking into what you had considered previously to be practices of spirituality, but they were coming from a more ego-driven perspective. And there's many people who are very happy teach it to people from that lower level perspective, even principles that can actually be applied and work, but they're only being done from that more ego-driven, selfish perspective, and that's not a proper application of spirituality and occultism. That's done from a very egoic position. So some people come at it from that side where their intent was to look at the good side of it, and then they discover that there's a dark element to it, and then they want to know more about what that is. Very, very interesting experience that you had there, Frank, and I'm very glad that I could help in bridging that knowledge gap there, and helping you to understand a little bit more about those darker elements of the occult that are really controlling things behind the scenes in our world, and really doing a number on the collective minds of humanity that keep them in this mindset of believing that this whole control system is somehow morally legitimate, when it really is just based in coercion and violence. So how long would you say it took you from the discovery of my work to really understanding the moral principles and changing your worldview?
Okay, it really take me like not too much time, because I really have an open mind. In the beginning, for me, it was difficult.
Right.
When I first listening, I like my brainwashing to the word like occultism. So for me, occultism was something dark. But when I take patience, because I was saying that I'm into my room so I can listen to your podcast, it's not that I have give my consent. I'm not part of some type of mystic group. So little by little, when I saw your presentation of natural law, where you really explain the occultism, what it consists of, the major and minor arcana, all those type of things. So it started open my mind, and I really grabbed the concept. But for me, it's difficult because, as you can see, my English is not perfect. But like you used to say, the great word require persistence.
That's right.
I used to do, because your presentation of the natural law seminar, I have made the transcribe of it with my poor English. So it took me 2 weeks.
Oh, fantastic. Thanks for doing that. And I just briefly want to say before you continue, to anybody that wants to transcribe any of my presentations into other languages, you don't need my permission. Just do it and redistribute it, okay? You don't even need to write to me and ask. Just, if you want to put it in another language, take the original English video, subtitle it, make a transcription, redistribute it. Okay, my information isn't copywritten in that sense. I want it to remain intact. I would like you not to take it out of context, but absolutely, if you want to translate it into other languages, you don't need my permission to do that. Okay, as long as you feel you're going to do a good job in the translation and not change the context of things that I've said, just please do translate it and put it back out there. So that is just something I wanted to say to the listening audience who may have experiences with other languages, because we do need to get this out to everywhere in the world, not just the English-speaking regions of the world. So thank you for that, Frank, and continue.
My purpose when I make the transcription is for really understand and grasp all the concept. So now I'm preparing myself, because it took me, like I said, not too much time to really grasp the concept of occultism and spiritual law. Like you say in one of your podcasts, I can say that I really have the North Star. For me, it was easy. But the difficulty I used to have was to really go out and move myself from the of the culture, of the Occidental culture, because for me, I was much more ego-driven.
Right. And you know what? This is what I hear. This is what I hear from a lot of people, Frank. I hear that they had to actually have the time set aside somehow to actually sit with the material, sit with the information. It seems like part of how they really control us is by keeping us so busy and so focused only on survival and running that rat race and running that rat wheel, that we never take a breath. We never stand back from the situation and look at it with fresh eyes from a little bit far away from it. That we're always wrapped up and ensconced in our own thoughts and in our own, daily practices on a daily basis, with work, with, family life, etc., and with frivolous things and entertainment, that we never have the time to actually do that. So I want to say to you that I want to thank you for making that time in your life. That we can all make that time, even if it's a few hours a week. We can make that time and spend it with quality information that we know that we need to take in and learn and understand. It is a labor of love. If we consider that we love ourselves and we love our family members and we love our children and we want to see better things happen for future generations, there is no excuse not to do that. We have to make the time. Even if we have limited availability of time, there are ways of making that time and engaging in time management to be able to take in pertinent knowledge. So, Frank, I want to thank you for doing that. I want to thank you for the call. It's great. It's very heartening to hear from people from non-English speaking countries and regions of the world. I actually just got an ARC drive from Italy. It's something that you don't see that often. Italy is one of the regions that, for whatever reason, I guess it is mostly a language divide. You don't see a lot of people, getting the ARC drive or even data, from the gifts area from Italy. There are a few, but more so in, other areas of Europe like France and Germany, etc. Sweden, Switzerland, etc. There many other places take me up on a lot of these offers, but Italy seems to be reticent, and I'm starting to see more people from Italy get involved and really go down that true spiritual path of learning and development, and that's good to see because obviously it's a big religious stronghold of the world, clearly, with the Roman Catholic Church there and the Vatican. So I think it's a good thing that more people from that area are coming online to this knowledge and working to take it into themselves and spread it. So thank you so much, Frank. So let's move on to another caller. Let's hear from State of Anarchy. State of Anarchy, you're live on What on Earth is Happening. If you could mute your background noise and or apply headphones. To take it into themselves and spread it. So thank you so much, Frank. So let's move on to another caller. State of Anarchy. State of Anarchy. State of Anarchy, you're live. Yep. Please mute the background or I'm going to have to let you go. Are you there, State of Anarchy?
What's up?
There he goes. Carmen, how are you?
Mark, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. So let me make this point because I don't think I've ever really fully made it. The best way of going into the call is you have to put headphones on. I'm going to have to mute you for a moment to explain this, okay? And you want to listen in the room, in the Discord room. Don't listen to the live stream because that's going to be delayed by between 10 and 20 seconds, okay? So please listen while the calls are active for you to be called inside the Discord room with headphones or earbuds on. Okay, so let me go back to you, Carmen, and hopefully you can mute that background and just make sure that you have some type of headphones or earbuds on, because you don't want to be listening to my voice through speakers or it's going to echo back in and then I'm not really going to be able to take the call. So let's try it again. Carmen from State of Anarchy, you're live on What on Earth is Happening. Are you there?
All right, Mark, am I coming through?
You're coming through great now. Now it sounds good.
Yep, that was it. I had to get headphones.
No worries.
Awesome. Well, I just wanted to say thanks for coming to Anarchapulco and bringing the message down there to all those people, because, it is an anarcho-capitalist conference and we got to make sure that we don't get lost in the hype and all the craziness around the crypto.
We can't get lost in the hyphens, not just the hype, but the hyphens, right?
Yeah.
Hyphenated anarchy. Yeah.
All that stuff. It's too much. The infighting, the division. That's the one thing I think the anarchists forget about that I really appreciate you bring to the table, because it's about the unity and the unity behind the truth that is what's really going to make this sort of thing happen.
So let me ask you, what do you think was the general mindset of the presentation that I brought to the table from people that you spoke to and, intermingled with at the conference? What was put your finger on that pulse and give us some feedback of what you think most people at the conference thought about the work that I brought forward.
Dude, everybody just seems like that. It's like yours is the complete picture. Like, I feel like every other speaker sort of like specializes in one area or
so
in
you,
one
you
area
felt
or another.
that was your take, or did you feel that was the community's take?
But that was the take of everybody that talks to me. It's like everybody has, and even it's funny, even the past couple of callers have been echoing this. It's like people come to these conferences with like a certain sort of like, couple different jars of knowledge, and it's like once they see your work, you spell it all out for them, from why certain things in society are like this to like what the actual causal factors are on a spiritual plane. Some people only have one or two of those awarenesses, and you bridge the gap, which really allows people to sort of really ground themselves in a holistic understanding of what the problem is, but more importantly, what the solution is. And that's what's really beneficial, in my opinion.
That's a high compliment, and I really thank you for that. And I'm happy to hear that is kind of the way that the information is being received from that community, from someone who's talking to a lot of people and kind of gauging, reactions. So thanks for that feedback.
Oh yeah, Mark. Well, guess what? It's growing so fast that like now the State of Anarchy finds itself throwing a conference in Philadelphia, and we're going to be bringing a lot of people from Anarchapulco there.
Nice.
And I'm pretty sure you and I have talked. Are you going to be involved in this
Yeah,
this craziness?
you put the offer out on the table while we were doing that interview outside of the main lecture hall. And I'm in. If you want me to be part of it, I'm in, and I'll prepare that lecture that we talked about, the sacred gift of anger. So Carmen's going to be one of the main organizers. It's going to be happening here in Philadelphia in the fall. Yeah, absolutely. I'm totally down for doing it.
Mark, you're the man, dude. Well, thank you again for traveling by land all the way to the Pacific coast of Mexico to give that much needed presentation.
It was
Thank
something
you for
else.
doing.
Yeah,
that's insane. And then the crazy part is you spent 4 days coming back. When did you get back from Mexico?
I got
like
back.
A day or two ago?
I got back into Philadelphia yesterday at 3 p.m. Eastern time.
Yeah. And then I didn't even take a day off. Jumped right into the show the very next day. Gotta love it, man.
That was the plan. It almost didn't happen. I pushed through it and made it happen. I'm glad I did. So because the show's been pretty on fire thus far, and the callers have been great. So it was long. It was an arduous travel. It was tiring. I'm glad. I was actually kind of glad to be back in Philly. If it's weird to hear myself say that.
And I felt the same thing. It's weird. I felt the same thing.
We have some kind of a community here. It's not maybe the greatest that we could possibly hope for, but I'll tell you what, it's like, I'm not talking about the general population in the city. I'm talking about there is a freedom community here that, there are some people who do truly get it, who are from this city, and we're kind of like a small tight-knit unit, a tight-knit community. And I think some people are doing good work, putting the message out there. And I consider you one of them. So thanks for what you're doing with State of Anarchy. And thanks for getting involved in conference organization. It's a big job. It's hard work. So, get your, feet wet in that. And I wish you all the success in the world in putting the event together. And I'm glad that you're inviting me to be part of it.
Thank you for all your support. Thank you for inspiring me since like 2011. And dude, I will be seeing you soon because me and you have a documentary that we have to finish.
That's right. Carmen's helping me to edit the documentary on natural law that I'm making. It's called Mark Passio and the Science of Natural Law. It's going to be a full-length documentary on the entire teachings of natural law that I've been putting forward. And we're going to put that into a very good visual format through video, through a documentary video. And Carmen is one of the chief editors on the project. So we're actually going to be turning that into high gear. And my goal is I really want to get that finished, polished, and out by the end of the year. Maybe if we can get it done and polished in the way that I really want to see it done, maybe we could debut the documentary at Anarchadelphia. That would be
that's a great idea.
That would be a tremendous goal. It's kind of a a lofty goal, to have it done and polished and ready for release then. But I think if we work on it pretty steadfastly, we could get it done by then and debut it at that.
Completely agree, Mark, and I think I'll be able to make that happen.
Let's set that as our goal. I'd be happy if that happened. That's an ambitious enough timeline for me.
I'm with it, man. I think it's a great idea.
Awesome.
All right, Mark. Well, I'll get off the air. I'll let you get some more callers. Thanks for having me on, man. Appreciate it.
You got it, brother. Thanks so much, Carmen. Carmen from State of Anarchy, ladies and gentlemen. Check out his YouTube channel. All right. Let's go to Voluntarist. Voluntarist, you are live on the 200th episode of What on Earth is Happening. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Mark. Appreciate it. You can call me Chris, by the way. I was not aware that you attended Anarchapulco by ground. I figured you would have flown like most of the other folks.
I did last year. I made an exception to my no-fly rule. I haven't been flying since around 2005, but I kind of was a little upset with myself that I broke that no-fly rule and flew out there last year. I'm not a fan of air travel, even if the TSA wasn't part of it. It's nauseating to me. The air quality and motion of a plane doesn't suit me well for some reason. And I feel like I'm almost nauseous the entire trip, which doesn't really happen with me when I travel by train and or car or bus, unless I really try to read a lot on the bus or car. Then I can get that feeling, but it happens to me no matter what on a plane. So that was kind of torturous, taking the multiple planes last year, and I just resolved I wasn't going to do that anymore. So I went with ground travel. Again, tremendously different experience and very taxing also on the body, but at least it didn't make me feel like I was going to throw up the whole way there.
Sure. Yeah, it was kind of interesting. The flight in, I think I was the only one attending Anarchapulco this year going in. And on the way back, I think there were about 10 or so attendees from the event who were getting back on the plane. But, I always feel disgusted with the TSA when we go through there.
Yes.
But it was kind of interesting leaving. We had to go through the whole process with, it wasn't TSA, but it was the TSA when we hit Dallas Fort Worth from Mexico City, and some of the anarchists that were with me in line, I was talking to them and they were saying they don't like going through that body scanner, and I was like, why are you going through the body scanner? If these people are going to violate you, make it clear what they're doing.
Right.
And they weren't even aware you can opt out. And I always try to raise my voice, and I said I'm opting out. And sure enough, 7 anarchists in a row opted out. And I made a point. I always do this when they're doing this. The TSA agents try to be so polite with you, and they're like, "Oh, I got to do this, that, and the other. Do you have any sensitive spots?" And I say, "Yeah, my penis. I don't want you to touch my penis." And they always tell me, they say, "Oh, well, I have to do that." And I say, "Well, if you're going to violate me, go ahead. I don't consent to you touching my penis, and I don't want you to do it. It's your decision." And they always say, "Well, I have to do this." And I tell them, it's your decision. I mean, you can't get into a huge philosophical debate in that moment, but I try to emphasize the fact that this is something that they are doing. It is their choice to do it or not to do it. What needs to be
told to these people is, no, you do not have to do it. What you mean is you want the money that you receive to do this immoral behavior from the people who are paying you to do it. That's what you are really saying, that you will do something that is an immoral violation of someone else's natural rights because you want the money that comes from your masters as a reward for you doing this immoral action to another human being. That is what they are really saying when they are saying, I have to do it. No, you don't have to do anything. You want the money that comes from doing it, that you are paid to act in that immoral capacity. And that dynamic is exactly what makes every single one of these people immoral, bad people. And they need to be told it just like that. They need to be told it like that by their friends and family members, above all else. But here's the problem. Their friends and family members are just as immoral as they are in most cases and would do the same thing for money. This is the problem with most of the people of the earth, is that they are just immoral people at their core foundational values, in the spiritual aspects of themselves. They don't care about what's really right or wrong. All they care about is how they will gain from the performance of the action. And if they will gain from it, they will do harm to somebody else and violate their rights. And that's what Satanism is. This is what I've been trying to explain to people for 12 years, that is what the religion called Satanism actually is. It's not what people think it is. It is being willing to do anything to your fellow human being if it means that you profit from it, including violating their rights or their life. And that person is a Satanist. Whether they understand or agree with that definition or not, that is what the religion of Satanism actually is. It doesn't matter whether they don't understand it. By that very actual, truthful, definitively correct definition of Satanism, that makes them in practice a de facto Satanist by their deeds.
Oh yeah, and it was even more obvious what was going on. The individual that was right behind me in line, she had just learned that you could actually opt out of this full body scanner.
Right.
She was probably about 6 months pregnant. I mean, she was very pregnant, and she opted out. And we were all speaking in very loud voices, so everyone else around could see what was going on.
Right.
And this guy was groping this pregnant lady, and I said, "So you're going to feel up a pregnant lady in public? This is your choice." Anyway, you had mentioned you went on ground travel, and it just reminded me, because I'm always furious every time I travel anywhere through the airport, because I really hate those fucking TSA offices.
Now
anyway.
imagine how many people will apply for those jobs. How many hundreds of thousands of people nationwide and worldwide will go into that type of a job? They don't even understand the concept of what right livelihood is. People should look up this concept, right livelihood. It's part of the Buddhist tradition. See, part of the Buddhist tradition, which there are aspects of true spirituality within other religions as well. It's not that they have every single thing wrong. It's just they don't get down to the real core truths of morality in many cases, because it's wrapped up with so much dogma and other nonsense. But in the Buddhist tradition in the Far East, it is taught that there is something called the right way of making a living, the right way of making the money that you or resource that you need to make to survive and live in the 3D reality. And if you are doing something that is a violation of other people's rights, lives, and freedom, then that is wrong livelihood, that you should not do that for any amount of money. And if it does cause harm, if it does initiate harm or aggression or coercion or violence or duress upon anyone, that you should not engage in that behavior regardless of whether you will be paid for it. Okay? And this is what people in these positions have to understand. There is a right, morally right way of bringing in resources for you and your family to survive, as is currently needed, unfortunately, in the current monetary system we are living in. And then there is a morally wrong way to do that. Okay, we need to step away from the morally wrong ways of doing that and only do that in a capacity that is morally right and acceptable according to the laws of morality to do. And unfortunately, most people don't care. They will just continue to go and violate other people's rights as long as they're receiving a paycheck to do it. And we need to stop calling these people in any way good people. They're not good, well-intentioned people. They're people who don't care. They don't care about whose rights they're violating. That makes them psychopathic. They don't care. They'll look you right in the face and go, I care more about my paycheck than your rights. or even mine. See, they're saying they don't care about their own rights. You know, I'm not talking about mine, Mark Passio. Speaking as them, they'll say to you, I don't care about your rights and I don't care about my rights. They don't care about human rights. Now, what kind of a person doesn't care about human rights? It's called being an immoral, bad person. We need to stop euphemizing it and say, oh, well, they're just trying to feed their family. I don't really care. That's not my issue or problem. My issue or problem is, are you violating people's rights to do that? And you don't have any right to do that. You know, you only believe that you do. You know, personally, I don't care. You put a gun up against my head and tell me to go violate other people's rights. I don't shoot me. It doesn't matter to me. I'm not cooperating. I'm not going to do the behaviors that are commanded to me to do for any amount of money or any amount of violence. You know,
Right.
We have to get over that notion that, you know, it's okay just because they have children to feed. No, it's not. That still makes them an immoral human being. That still makes them a bad person. You know, we have this totally wrong idea of what a good person and a bad person are. You know, we have this soft definition of what it means to be a good person. It's a way narrower path to truly being a good, true, moral human being than people think that it is. And therein lies the problem, is that most people have been given this soft, euphemistic definition of what a good person is. You know, these aren't good people. Never were. Their parents couldn't have been good people to teach them, or not teach them, I should say, any kind of true moral values. They had to come from an immoral upbringing, so-called upbringing. They weren't really brought up or raised at all, you know, in any kind of true moral principles. And, you know, their parents didn't provide that kind of a moral nurturing environment because they probably didn't have it themselves. And then the cycle gets perpetuated down the line to the next generation and the next and the next. We have to break that cycle. And we can do it by openly telling people that what you think of as being moral or being good is not what it really means to be moral or good. And those are bad people. And we have to say it openly and plainly to them and insult them right to their face by telling them, you're just a bad person. You're just an immoral person. I'm not interested in what their sensibilities are. You know, I don't care whether they get offended by that. They could get as offended as they like. It's still true. And that's all that matters when it comes to this spiritual war. All that matters is, are you on the side of truth? Are you on the side of true goodness or not? And this is what people on our side have to come to understand, is that they have to stop mincing words. They have to be more bold with people, and they have to tell them right to their face, you're an immoral person and it's not okay what you are doing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Mark, I did attend your workshop as well.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
And just as my feedback, I'm still following more of your information. I think I've followed you for about 4 years, and I still haven't consumed all of the content that you've put out there. But my personal opinion about that particular workshop, and I do hope that makes it, the video from that makes it online.
Yes,
I think that was probably
very briefly before you give me your analysis of it. I did record it. I am planning on getting that edited fully to release the entire 9-hour presentation workshop of demystifying the occult revisited. It will take a little while to do that, but I'm going to have the resources available to do that. I have the raw material, and that will be being done. So rest assured, at some future point, maybe not right away, we are going to release Demystifying the Occult Revisited workshop from Anarchapulco 2019. So go ahead, continue, Chris.
Perfect. Yeah, well, I just want to let you know that information I would consider is probably the best put together presentation of this information that you have done to date. It was absolutely fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I'm looking forward to having it come up again. I think it was about 5 hours in before we took a lunch break.
Yes.
And from that 4th hour to the 5th hour, my focus kind of started to go away a little bit there. So I do look forward to catching some of that information. Anyway, I just want to let you know, I could definitely tell the amount of effort that you put into that. It was absolutely the most refined presentation. I would say it was more or less a summary of almost all of your content put into one presentation.
I'd have to agree. That was kind of where I was going with it. I really wanted to give people their money's worth and hit them with a whole lot. And I know it covered a lot of ground. And that's why I did want to try to strike a balance between putting a whole lot of info in and then maybe possibly losing people's focus and attention, because I know that it's a tall order to sit there for that amount and take in deep esoteric material for that amount of time. And I just want to say that people really did a fantastic job in attuning themselves to really do that, because that's no easy task. I recognize how difficult that is to do. I don't pretend that that's not a tall order to ask someone to focus their mind for that long a period of time. So it shows you how desiring to get that body of material into oneself, that the people who attended that were, and that's it's inspiring to me that there are people out there who do take that approach to it and want to learn that deeply and badly. So thank you so much, Chris, for your analysis of that and for attending and helping me to get some resources as part of my entire journey down to Mexico and convert that back into the great work here back in Philadelphia. So Chris, thanks so much for your call. Just really great feedback on the event, the seminar at the event in particular. Okay, let's go to, look, we have less than 5 minutes left total. So let's see, who else can we go to? Let's go to Roman. Roman, you are live on What on Earth is Happening? Episode number 200. Welcome. Roman, are you there? There you go.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. You just unmuted. Great. Can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. How? Wow. I tried to contact you for years, Mark. It's a real pleasure to have you on the phone.
Oh, thank you.
I tried through many different ways, and I struggled because I don't know, it was pretty hard to get you on. So anyway, just let's go directly to the topic. So just a little bit about my journey. So I discovered something like 6 years ago a language based on arithmetic and mathematics, and it actually took me quite a few years to actually realize that that knowledge was actually what you are explaining as the natural laws. It's through the discovering of the Kybalion, the Kybalion book, that allowed me to understand that what I was able to see in mathematics, in numbers, in arithmetic, actually was actually what that Kybalion structured in its way through the language of the shape of the numbers. Basically, right. I discovered that secret language that is encoded that I couldn't understand. I initially downloaded that geometry that is actually challenging a little bit your explanations about the nature of numbers and nature of geometry, the way you present it. And then after that, I discovered your work. And I was like, wow, okay, so that it expanded my approach and my understanding. And I used a little bit of your material to the course that I did.
Excellent. It's a profound occult work, the Kybalion, and again, geometry is one of the methodologies of the Quadrivium. It's one of the quantification sciences of the Quadrivium, which is the adjunct to the Trivium method. So it's all connected, and I guess by looking at the natural laws, the underlying principles of natural law that is contained within the Kybalion, then that somehow led online for you to discover my work in natural law. Is that correct?
So I downloaded a geometry. I discovered something that it took me actually 3 years to understand. It's based on, so for the people who would like to look at what it looks like, they just can go to Facebook on Sacred Arithmetic. I have I think 23,000 followers Facebook page called Sacred Arithmetic, and they can actually see the symbol that I discovered. And it actually took me years to understand what this symbol was. And it's only when I read the Kybalion that I realized, oh, wow, I see through this symbol those universal laws that are explained in the Kybalion. And then I taught to people. But the problem is that people don't give a shit. They don't understand. they don't get it. I did a course to more than, I don't know, 50, 80 people, and I guess probably like 10% of them got it. But it requires so much work to be able to
we have
integrate.
to get that left brain only way of thinking out of the way that often comes through pure number and abstraction and arithmetic and, you know, the physical sciences, to connect deeply in, to not just get rid of it, but to make it not be our only modality of processing information, so that we can combine the head and the heart. You know, we can actually combine both aspects of the holistic aspects of higher thought function of the brain, and combine that with true heart-based intelligence. You know, and when we do that, you know, then we're going to make real progress in consciousness, and we're going to make progress toward greater levels of human freedom. But ladies and gentlemen, that's really all the time that we have for this edition of What on Earth is Happening. It's been so good taking your calls and hearing from you and your experiences in discovering this show. Glad I got a chance to recap Anarchapulco for everybody. That's all the time we have for this edition. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you right here next Sunday, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Remember, you've been watching What on Earth is Happening, and government is slavery. We'll see you right here next week. Thank you for watching.